Chapter 501. You wouldn't be playing tricks again, right? Mo Chuan suspiciously looked at her, clearly not believing her. He could not forget the many times she had made fun of him. This time, seeing her smirk in her eyes, his heart began to beat wildly. Do you want it or not? If you don't want it, I won't give it to you. She angrily stomped her foot. Why was he like a piece of wood? She didn't take the initiative, so why couldn't he take the initiative once? Last time, it was clearly her who took the initiative, so this time, it should be his turn, but she was too embarrassed to say this. All right, I'll believe you this once. Mo Chuan slowly closed his eyes. He held his breath, and his heart began to beat faster. It wasn't that he didn't want to take the initiative, but he wouldn't. He was afraid of being laughed at by her. So, he would let her do it. Although he didn't know how, he could secretly learn. With how smart he was, he would be able to learn quickly. Chen Ning raised her eyelashes and secretly looked at him. She saw that he had really closed his eyes. His eyelashes were long and thick, covering those black eyes that always made her feel flustered, but that slight tremble sold him out. The arm around her waist suddenly became stiff. She revealed a gentle smile. She suddenly wasn't nervous or shy anymore. This was because he was even more nervous and shy than her. She looked up and carefully looked at his brows, his eyes, and his jade-like nose. Those thin lips were very nice to look at. She didn't know how it would feel to kiss him. The last time, she had been too flustered and hurried. She had left after lightly touching his lips. She had not felt anything but a faint warmth. Right now, he was so close to her that she could touch him with her hands. She stood on her tiptoes and complained about how tall he was. She placed her arm around his neck and slowly moved closer to his lips. Her heart was beating fast, almost jumping out her chest. Her face was completely red. It was a good thing he couldn't see, otherwise she really wouldn't have the courage to take the initiative to kiss him. Her light and sweet breath caressed his face. Although his eyes were closed, he could still feel her getting closer and closer to him. His body was tense, and his hand around her waist was so stiff that he almost couldn't move. He was filled with anticipation and nervousness. But after waiting for a while, he still didn't feel the thing he was waiting for touch his lips. He couldn't help but slightly open his eyes. With a glance, he saw a delicate face like a white tea petal right in front of him. Her watery eyes were staring at him without blinking. Her eyes were misty and enshrouded in a thin layer of watery light. It was rippling and moving, but it caused his heart to suddenly tighten. What happened to her? What was she crying? Before he could open his mouth to ask, she suddenly closed her eyes and kissed the corner of his lips, causing his body to freeze instantly. She quickly left his lips and opened her eyes. She quickly left his lips, opened her eyes, and looked at him. Her eyes were dark and shiny. Thank me for what? His voice was hoarse. Although it was different from what he had expected, his heart couldn't help but soar with joy. Thank you for saving me, and thank you even more for saving Xiaoru. And Mo Chuan, I am very fortunate to have met you in this life. She murmured softly, burying her head deep into his chest and hugging his waist. She softly whispered and buried her head in his chest, hugging his waist. He didn't say anything. He just hugged her tightly and pressed his chin against the top of her head. He slowly lowered his head and kissed her gently in the middle of her hair. He did not say a word and just tightly hugged her. His chin was placed on her head, and he slowly lowered his head, gently kissing her hair. Chapter 502. The two of them did not say a word as they tightly hugged each other. Their hearts were beating in their chests, but they had never been this close before. Put on. The sound of something heavy falling came from outside the window, followed by a painful cry. Ayo! That sound was very familiar. Mo Chuan's expression suddenly changed. He grabbed Chen Ning's waist with one hand and tightly held her in his embrace. His other hand opened the window and looked outside, raising his brows. Lu, what are you doing here? He coldly said. Eldest Princess Lu was hugging her leg, jumping around in the yard with one leg. She was jumping while complaining. Oh, it's now my leg is numb. Big brother Emperor, if you want to kiss me, then hurry up and kiss me. You've made this princess legs numb from squatting for so long. Mo Chuan and Chun Ning finally found that there was a large hole in the window paper. It seemed like the words they had just said in the room and their intimate conversation had all been heard and seen by the eldest princess. Chun Ning's face turned as red as a piece of cloth. She instantly left Mo Chuan's embrace and moved far away from him. This eldest princess, she was a dignified princess, but she was actually learning from others to eavesdrop. Mo Chuan's face couldn't help turning red as his two beautiful eyebrows stood up. He looked at the eldest princess with an embarrassed and angry gaze, looking like he wanted to kill someone. The eldest princess suddenly gave a shiver. She realized that she had accidentally touched the tigers, but Ayaya, quickly run. She gave Mo Chuan and Chun Ning an awkward smile. She didn't care about her numb leg as she quickly ran away. Big brother Emperor, Ninger, you guys continue. This princess definitely won't peek at you again. Before she finished her sentence, she had already run so fast that not even her shadow could be seen. Humph! Mo Chuan looked in the direction the eldest princess disappeared in and gave a shy and angry snort. His eyes were filled with anger that couldn't be erased. He had just tasted that sweet as honey taste, and it had been ruined by the eldest princess. Now, he didn't even know how to continue. But he wasn't willing to let it end like this. Ninger, are you thirsty? He suddenly asked. Chun Ning's face was red, and her face was hot. She was stunned when she heard this and looked up. Thirsty? She did feel thirsty, and her cheeks were hot. She nodded subconsciously. Come, let's go out for a drink. Without another word, he carried her and jumped out of the window. With a light leap, he landed on the roof and started running. Chun Ning felt the wind blow past her ears, and the surrounding scenery flashed in front of her eyes. She looked at him in a daze, unable to react at all. Mo Chuan, there's tea in the room. If you're thirsty, we can drink tea. She tightened her arms around his neck. Because he was running too fast, she was afraid that she would fall out of his arms. She said these words right next to his ear. A ticklish breath blew into his ears, causing him to stumble and almost fall down the room. Don't talk, don't say no. He clenched his teeth, hugged her tightly, and quickened his steps. He was still ordering her out of habit. She pursed her lips. As expected of someone who was used to being an emperor, used to bossing people around. Now that he had a cold expression on his face, he was not cute at all. It was still his nervous and shy appearance from before that was interesting. She curled her lips and thought of when she was tiptoeing to kiss him. His body was stiff from nervousness, and his jade-like face was covered in a layer of red. Yeah, he was shy. Chapter 503. Her eyes looked around, and under the starlight, her eyes looked like they were drunk. She did not notice that although Mo Chuan was running, his eyes never left her face. This girl, what kind of trick was she playing at this time? Mo Chuan's heart was beating fast. Seeing her eyes looking around and the smile on her lips, he suddenly had a bad premonition. He suddenly stopped in his tracks and landed in a secluded and quiet alley. Chun Ning blinked and felt that this place was very familiar. It's that small wine shop. She pointed at a wine curtain in front of her and breathed in the fragrance of the wine coming from the alley. He put her down and grabbed her hand, preparing to walk over. She suddenly broke free of his hand and said in a suspicious voice, Speak. Why did you bring me here to drink? You clearly know that I will get drunk as soon as I drink. Are you having bad intentions? Do you want to take advantage of me being drunk and do something to me? She opened her bright eyes wide and stared right at him. Mo Chuan was so angry that he wanted to poke her mute acupuncture point, making it so that she couldn't speak anymore. How could this girl think of him as such a dirty person? Was he the kind of person who would take advantage of others? That's right. It's exactly what you're thinking. I want to make you drunk and then... Humph. He tightly gripped her wrist and forced her into the corner until she had nowhere to go and her back was pressed against the hard and rough wall. He used one arm to support himself against the wall and his other hand to lift her chin, purposely making a fierce expression to scare her. She smiled and blinked her eyes. Starlight seemed to have flown into her eyes, and they were glistening and sparkling. I don't need to drink, and you don't need to make me drunk, because seeing you makes me drunk. You don't know, but you are even more intoxicating than the richest wine in the world." Her voice became lower and lower. The last few words were almost inaudible, just like a whisper. Mo Chuan's ears rang with a wong sound. He stared at her and stared right at her, not daring to believe that these words had just come out of her mouth. His whole body felt warm and light, as if he was about to fly. Did she know that her words were the most intoxicating wine in the world? He didn't need to drink it to be drunk. "However, I know of another wine that is even better than the wine here. How about you take me to have a taste?" She seemed to be suddenly interested. She slipped out of his arms like a fish and turned around to grab his hand. "Oh, what kind of wine is it?" His eyes flashed, but he still couldn't bear to look away from her face. As long as he was with her, even drinking water would be better than drinking the best wine in the world. "It's the flower wine in the brothel. I heard that there's a famous brothel in the capital. Not only does it have the best wine, but it also has the most beautiful girls who can sing the best songs. Let's go drink flower wine together, okay?" She said this with a smile. Her eyes could not hide the interest. It was said that the brothel was a place that one had to visit after transmigrating, but she had never seen one before. She had to go to a brothel. Of her hand was not moving. He was like a pine tree, standing alone and motionless. "What?" She looked at him with a puzzled expression. "Aren't we going to drink?" His face was as dark as a pot, and his eyes were filled with anger. Where did this girl hear all this nonsense? She actually wanted to drag him, the emperor, to a brothel to listen to music and drink wine. Chapter 504. Ning shivered from the cold intent in his eyes and couldn't help taking a step back. He seemed like he was angry again. He really was a temperamental person. She didn't say anything she shouldn't have, so why was he glaring at her like this? If you don't want to go to a brothel, we can go somewhere else to drink." She turned her eyes and said with a giggle. She pointed at the small bar in front of them. "If you like to drink there, then we'll go there." "You like to listen to songs when you drink?" he suddenly said. His voice was low, but it didn't contain any anger. "That's right." She subconsciously nodded. "All right, then I'll bring you to a place with wine and songs." After he said this, he grabbed her waist and used his qigong, heading in a certain direction. She couldn't help but follow him into the air. You really want to bring me to a brothel?" She was surprised and strange. Her heart was filled with a trace of bitterness. She thought he was very pure, but she never thought that he would also be an old hand at visiting brothels. She bit her lip and suddenly wanted to bite his ear hard. Visiting a brothel. Where did this lass hear all these terms from? Mo Chuan's lips fiercely twitched. The arm holding her waist unknowingly tightened, making it so that she couldn't make a sound. He stopped by a river this time. Holding her, he jumped onto a boat with a black awning. Then with a kick, he sent the boatman ashore. The boatman was just about to curse when suddenly a shiny white object flew over and fell into his bosom. He looked down and saw it was a 50-tael ingot. Immediately he smiled from ear to ear. "What?" Wei Xiaobao asked. "Wait for me here. I'll go get the wine." Mo Chuan placed her in the cabin and then flew out. When he came back, he was holding a jar of wine in each hand, and each jar was at least 10 pounds. He pulled out a wooden table and placed it on the bow of the boat. Then he poured out 2 bowls of wine and pulled her to sit on the bow of the boat. He did not paddle and just allowed the boat to gently sway on the water. There were beautiful boats swaying on the river. There were red lanterns hanging on the boats, creating a hazy light that was reflected in the water. The water rippled and the entire river was filled with a charming and hazy feeling, making one feel intoxicated. Ning unknowingly fell into a daze. "Let's drink." He handed her a bowl of wine. That wine was as red as rouge, and it was very fragrant. It was the wine they had drunk in the small restaurant before. She took the bowl of wine and smiled, but she did not drink it. She deliberately said, "You said you would bring me here to listen to music and drink, but there's only wine and no music. I won't drink unless you sing me a song." Mo Chuan couldn't help glaring at her. He knew that she was going to tease him, but it was a good thing he was already prepared. It was a good thing he was already prepared. He clapped his hands, and a boat stopped beside the black awning boat. Two young female singers came out of the boat, holding a pipa as they bowed to the two of them. Two guests. What song would you like to hear? One of the female singers asked with a faint smile. Mo Chuan did not reply and just looked at Chen Ning. She was stunned. She had never heard a song before, so how could she name it? She said, "You can sing whatever you want. As long as you sing well, this young master will heavily reward you." After saying this, she smiled as she looked at Mo Chuan. Under the swaying red shadow, Mo Chuan's delicate features looked like they were painted in ink. They flickered on and off, rippling in the water. Chapter 505. The two singers couldn't help being stunned. It wasn't until Mo Chuan knit his brows and gave a cold snort that the two of them reacted. They quickly looked away, but their hearts were still beating fast. Then, "This servant will embarrass myself." One of the singers moved her strings and began to play the pipa. The sound was clear and melodious. The other singer opened her throat and sang a fragrant song. Her words were lingering and the melody was low, attracting people's souls. Her eyes were watery as she looked over at Mo Chuan from time to time. It was a pity that Mo Chuan did not look at her at all, not even paying attention to what she was singing. He took a sip and looked over at her. The ripples of the lake reflected on her cheeks, making her look even more beautiful. This scene was enough to intoxicate a person's soul. Chen Ning drank a few mouthfuls of wine, and a faint blush appeared on her face. Her cheeks were a bit hot, and she couldn't handle the alcohol, especially when she heard the song the singer was singing. It was sweet, not like a song, but more like a soft moan. It was high and low, and the meaning of the words couldn't be understood, but made people's hearts beat faster and their faces turn red. She couldn't help asking Mo Chuan in a low voice, "What song is she singing? Why is the tune so strange?" Mo Chuan's handsome face turned slightly red. He revealed a smile and an angry look at her. "Didn't you want to listen to a song? This is a song. Why can't you understand it?" "Then you can understand it? Tell me what she's singing." She was not convinced. "I also don't understand it." Mo Chuan's face turned red again. He looked away and no longer looked at her. Chen Ning saw his face turn red again and became suspicious. She grabbed his hand and shouted, "You must have understood it, but you deliberately didn't tell me, right?" His hand was burning hot, and when she grabbed it, she felt a burning sensation. She couldn't help being stunned as she asked, "Why is your hand so hot? Do you have a fever?" She raised her hand to touch his forehead and was grabbed by him. He knit his brows. "Ninger, don't mess around." "I'm not messing around. I just want to see if you're sick. Could it be that the wind on the river is too strong and you've caught a cold? Mo Chuan, are you cold?" Her hands were grabbed by him, and she felt that his palms were burning hot, making her even more worried. Cold? How could he be cold? He was about to die from the heat. Mo Chuan tightly held her hand. Her fingertips were cool and very comfortable to the touch, but this comfort only lasted for a while. Her smooth skin and soft jade-like fingers made him feel even hotter. "I'm not cold." He let go of her hand and drank mouthful after mouthful of wine. The cold wine entered his stomach and the fire in his body was temporarily extinguished. A cool breeze blew on the surface of the water, bringing him waves of refreshing comfort. It was B. What kind? Mo Chuan thought his mental fortitude was very good, but he had lost his mind just now and almost fell for it. He couldn't help secretly rejoicing that this was a boat on a lake. If they really went to a brothel and drank wine while listening to this kind of song, how many people would be able to control themselves like him? Humph! If he knew that there was someone who dared to suggest going to a brothel to listen to music, he would cut off that person's head. "Have you heard enough? Do you still want to listen?" He looked at her and revealed a faint smile. He saw that her face was becoming more and more red and her eyes were becoming blurred. He couldn't help finding it funny. Could it be that this lass understood as well? Chapter 506. Chen Ning shook her head and said, "I'm not listening. I'm not listening." She felt her mouth become dry, and she unknowingly treated the wine as water, drinking several mouthfuls. If she kept listening and drinking like this, she would be drunk to death. "If you haven't heard enough, I can have them sing one song at a time until you've heard enough." Mo Chuan suddenly came close to her and spoke in a low voice with a smile. His breath fell on her ears, making her feel a bit itchy, and her face became even hotter. I've heard enough. I've really heard enough. She quickly covered her ears and rubbed them. Mo Chuan revealed a smile and threw out a silver ingot that landed on the boat. Many thanks to the two guests. The two female singers had only sung one song, but they never thought that they would receive this kind of reward. Their eyes lit up and they bowed down again and again. Mo Chuan waved his hand, and the boat slowly drifted away, disappearing into the light of the lake. The wind is strong on the river. Let's go in and drink. Mo Chuan's internal energy was deep, so he was not afraid of the wind, but he was worried that she was weak and couldn't take the cold wind blowing from the water. He stroked her thin clothes and secretly regretted his carelessness. How could he have been so careless and not thought of giving her a cloak? But this couldn't be blamed on him. As the emperor, he had people taking care of his food and clothing. He was always thinking about the matters of the country, so how could he think about these trivial matters? All right, let's go in and drink. She stood up and walked into the cabin. With the wind blowing, the wine filled her. She was only 30% drunk, but now she was 10% drunk. She swayed, and her feet tripped on the deck of the ship. With a sudden stagger, her whole body fell forward like a wooden stake. Be careful! Mo Chuan was holding a jar of wine in one hand and a wooden table in the other. Seeing this, he threw the wine jars on the table into the water and rushed over to help her up. It was too late. He had no choice but to leap forward. When she fell, he was right under her body, so she didn't feel any pain at all. Mo Chuan. She placed an arm on his chest and swayed as she stood up. She giggled and said, "Why do you have two heads? Why are you swaying back and forth? You're making my head dizzy." Hearing this, Mo Chuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This girl was drunk again. He still remembered the last time when she was drunk, the way she talked and laughed in his arms. His heart suddenly swayed with a layer of warmth. One arm gently wrapped around her waist, and the other gently brushed aside the hair on his face. He gave her a pampering smile and said in a soft voice, "Ning-er, you're drunk." "I'm not drunk. I'm just a bit dizzy." She shook her head and became more and more dizzy. Her arms could not support her body weight, and she fell on his firm chest again. That soft and velvety touch immediately caused his heart to beat faster and his breathing to quicken. The flame that had originally been extinguished began to stir again. Not hugging her like this, he wouldn't be able to hold her. He took a deep breath, held her shoulders, and kept a certain distance from her. His eyes were dark, and there were two small flames burning in them. Ning-er. The moment these two words left his mouth, he realized that his voice was hoarse. He couldn't help but be startled. What do you want to say?" She slightly lowered her head, her drunken eyes filled with a smile as she looked down at him. Chapter 507. His words came to an abrupt stop. In the next moment, she lowered her head and her soft petal-like lips blocked the words he wanted to say. His body turned stiff once again. This kiss was too sudden and completely caught him off guard. He did not even have time to close his eyes. He saw her long and curly eyelashes gently tremble, her drunken eyes rippling, and her silky hair hanging down, covering both his and her face. Their breaths intertwined, and the sweet fragrance of alcohol filled the air. He didn't know if she was drunk or if he was drunk. Perhaps they were both drunk. It was just the touch of their lips. That lingering soft fragrance was so sweet that it went straight to their hearts. Their heartbeats involuntarily sped up, with a faint sense of loss and helplessness. Ning did not know what she was doing. She just felt a bit thirsty, and there was a drop of wine on his lips, so she stuck out her tongue to gently lick it. Then she heard a short and hoarse breath come from his throat. The arms around her suddenly tightened, almost making it hard for her to breathe. "Woo!" As soon as she let out a protesting whisper, she suddenly felt the world spin around her. Her entire body had already been flipped over by him. She was lying flat on the cool and smooth deck. Her eyes were hazy as she looked up at him. Because of this, their lips were separated. Their faces were red, and their breathing was rapid. He did not put his body weight on her. He used one arm to support himself on the deck, and the other to gently brush aside the hair on her face, revealing her petal-like beautiful face and those misty eyes. He looked at her seriously and attentively. His slender fingers landed on her smooth and full forehead, moving down, sliding over the tip of her nose, and slowly landing on her red lips. This was what he had just touched. He caressed her lips. It was light, thin, and soft like a ripe fruit. A light bite would cause sweet juice to flow out. Although it was only for a short moment, that sweet and beautiful taste seeped into his heart, making him unable to forget it. Mo Chuan, I'm very thirsty. I want to drink water. She suddenly opened her mouth, and her thin lips touched his fingers, just like she was kissing his fingers. There's no water, only wine. Do you want a drink? He controlled his heart and poured a bowl of wine for her. She shook her head, not taking it. Her eyes were as innocent as a little animal's. I'm dizzy. Feed me. Feed? How? He was stunned. Looking at the bright red wine in the bowl, he suddenly realized something. He pursed his lips and said in a hoarse voice, All right. Without any hesitation, he drank a mouthful of wine and held it in his mouth. Then he lowered his head and kissed her lips. The sweet wine slid into her mouth, and she immediately swallowed it thirstily. But in the next moment, she was stunned. Her black and bright eyes suddenly widened, and she stared at the man in front of her like a frightened deer. Because what entered her mouth was not just the sweet wine, it was also his. Her brain went blank in an instant. She was originally dizzy, but now she felt light. Her whole body seemed to be floating in the clouds and mist, slowly drifting. The river slapped against the deck of the boat, and the boat swayed gently again and again. Chapter 508. When their tongues touched again, their bodies trembled at the same time. That kind of beautiful feeling seemed like it was about to explode as it spread from their lips to their entire body. He closed his eyes and wholeheartedly experienced this kiss. His expression was filled with an unprecedented concentration. This was a beautiful feeling that he had never tasted before. He never thought that after tasting it, he would never be able to give it up. Their lips were filled with the fragrance of wine. His gentle kiss was like flowing water, lingering endlessly. Her head was tilted back, and her eyes were slightly closed. There was a faint glow in her eyes as she felt his gentleness. He was so careful, holding her in the palm of his hand and protecting her. Even his kiss was filled with pity and longing. She really wanted to keep kissing him like this until the end of time. Suddenly, an intense pain burst forth from her chest, causing her to tremble involuntarily. He immediately felt it. Looking up with deep eyes, he said in a hoarse voice, "What's wrong? Did I hurt you?" He suddenly realized that he had been too immersed in his kiss, and it had been too long, making her lie on the cold and hard deck. His heart filled with guilt. "No, it's me. I feel a bit cold." She insincerely looked down and rubbed her shoulders. "I'll hug you." He immediately pulled her up and had her sit in his embrace. Opening his strong arms, he held her in front of his chest. After thinking about it, he undid his belt and took off his clothes. She jumped like a frightened rabbit, and her face instantly turned white. You, what are you doing?" He took off his clothes and tightly wrapped them around her shoulders. He whispered in her ear, "Are you still cold?" "No, I'm not cold anymore." Her white teeth bit her lower lip, and she looked at him with a complicated expression. Her delicate face was covered in a faint blush. Her heart was filled with annoyance. She actually thought that he was taking off his clothes because what kind of person did she think Mo Chuan was? How could he be like Chu Xiaoyang, having those kinds of thoughts in his head? Mo Chuan poured another bowl of wine and used his internal energy to heat it up. Then he placed it by her lips. "Drink some hot wine, and you won't be cold." She lowered her eyes, took the wine bowl, and slowly drank. As the hot wine entered her stomach, her whole body felt warm. When she raised her eyelashes, she found that he was looking at her without blinking. His eyes were focused, as if he could see in her heart. She suddenly panicked. Her fingers trembled, and she almost dropped the wine bowl. He reached out in time and held her hand. His hand was large and warm, but her fingers were cold and trembling. Ninger, you aren't cold, you are afraid. Tell me, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of me? He calmly looked at her, but there was a faint wound in his eyes. Every minute change in her expression didn't escape his eyes. He had been trying his best to restrain himself and not do anything too outrageous to her. Even the kiss was initiated by her. He did not want to put her in a difficult position. He wanted to give her enough respect. If she was unwilling, he would not force her, because right now, she still didn't belong to him. Other than her lips, he had not touched any part of her body that he was not supposed to touch. But why was she trembling in fear? Chapter 509. The wine she drank was mellow in her body, and each word she said was filled with a hint of drunkenness. It was because of the wine that she dared to say the words hidden deep in her heart. She looked at him in a drunken daze. In the faint light, his cold and delicate brows were like blooming pear blossoms. Her fingers were cool as they touched his brows, eyes, and lips, slowly touching and caressing. He did not move at all, letting her fingers slide across every part of his face. His thin lips were slightly pursed, and his eyes were deep. I like you, Mo Chuan. She suddenly spat out these words like she was dreaming. He held his breath again, almost not daring to believe his ears. His pair of eyes, which had always been calm, was no longer calm. Say it again, he said in a hoarse voice. He heard wrong. He must have heard wrong. I like you. Her red lips that were stained with alcohol pressed against his brows, and she whispered, I like your eyebrows. Your eyes. Her lips slowly slid down. Your nose. Also, here. She kissed his lips. Her breath smelled like orchids, and his breathing became a bit chaotic. His eyes were half open as he stared at her peach blossom-like beautiful face. He did not dodge and allowed her lips to gently touch his, not making any further movements. Because he knew that the girl he liked was drunk. He did not want to do this while she was drunk. If he wanted to do it when she was sober and willing. But no matter how rational he was still a young and vigorous man. Although her kiss was light, it was like a small fire that slowly lit his heart. Very quickly, it became a prairie fire. Ninger, you're drunk. I'll send you back. Her kiss landed on his Adam's apple and continued moving downwards. He couldn't take it anymore and hugged her to stop her from continuing. I'm not drunk. She suddenly raised her eyelashes. Her dark and clear eyes reflected his figure. Then do you know what you're doing? He said in a soft voice as he stared at her. Of course I know. She revealed a lazy smile in his embrace. Her lips curled up and she softly said, I'm seducing you, my Lord Emperor. Pooh! And Mo Chuan almost couldn't help throwing her into the river. He was sure once again that she was drunk. No, if he let her continue like this, who knew how many more ridiculous things she would do and how many more ridiculous things she would say. He was a man. There were times when he couldn't control himself. You're drunk. I'll send you back. He stood up while carrying her and walked out of the cabin. As the wind blew across the river, her drunkenness intensified, and she began to struggle with all her might. I'm not leaving. I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not going. Mo Chuan and Mo Chuan's heart. Mo Chuan felt his ears heat up, and a numb feeling spread from his ears to his entire body. His arms holding her suddenly lost strength, and she broke free from him. Putain. She fell from his arms and actually fell into the deep and dark river. She made a splash and was instantly swallowed by the river. She fell. At that instant, his breathing stopped. His heart felt as if it was fiercely gripped by a large hand, and it hurt to the point he couldn't even breathe. Without a second thought, he jumped into the river where she had disappeared. When the cold river water went over his head, he suddenly realized that this was bad. Chapter 510. Gudong, Gudong. He drank several mouthfuls of the cold river water, and the cold air went straight to his head. It made his head that had become dizzy from his anxiety clear up. He quickly calmed down. Relying on his deep internal energy, he held his breath. It was enough for him to stay underwater for a while, so although he was panicked, he was not panicked. He opened his eyes in the water and searched for her, but the night was as dark as ink. Although he could see the reflection of the lanterns on the boat, the depths of the river were completely dark. He couldn't even see his fingers in front of him. Although his eyes were wide open, he still couldn't see anything. He wanted to call out her name, but when he opened his mouth, the river water entered his mouth. The breath he was holding in was instantly released, and he began to drink mouthfuls of water. His chest began to hurt from being suffocated, and his throat felt like it was being torn apart. He knew that if he didn't come to the surface, he would quickly drown or suffocate to death. But she was still in the river. If he couldn't find her, he definitely wouldn't go up. If she died, then what would he do? He wouldn't give up. He wouldn't give up no matter what. He had to save her. In his despair, his fingers, which were flailing about in the water, suddenly touched something that was cold to the bone. He immediately grabbed it tightly. Was it her? Was this her hand? His chest filled with a large amount of pleasant surprise. With the last of his strength, he pulled her to his side and held her in his embrace. Even if he died, he would die with her. He wouldn't let go. He definitely wouldn't let go. The corners of his mouth curled into a faint smile. His eyes slowly closed, and his consciousness gradually dissipated. Chen Ning fell into the river and was soaked in the cold water. Most of her drunkenness disappeared. She drank 2 mouthfuls of water and shook her head. When she was about to come to the surface, she suddenly heard a putong sound. It was the sound of something heavy falling into the water. She was stunned for a second before she reacted. It was Mo Chuan. Did he jump into the water to save her? The river was cold to the bone, but her heart was as warm as spring. A faint smile appeared on her face, and she immediately swam in the direction he fell in. Although she was a good swimmer, she couldn't even see her fingers in the water. She couldn't see anything, so she could only swim with one hand while her other hand searched the water. There was an undercurrent in the water. The two of them had only been in the water for an instant, but she had been brought several meters away by the undercurrent. She was like a nimble fish swimming in the water, but she couldn't find him at all. She knew that the longer she stayed in the water, the more dangerous it would be for him. Her tears unknowingly flowed out and quickly melted into the river. Mo Chuan, nothing will happen to you. Mo Chuan, you must be fine. If something happens to you, I don't want to live anymore. She was so anxious that her heart was about to explode. Suddenly, her finger touched something, and it was like something was guiding her, allowing her to swim to Mo Chuan's side. In the water of she she ch. Although she couldn't see, she knew that he was Mo Chuan. It was him. She was filled with joy, but as soon as the sweetness in her heart rose, she felt something was wrong. His arms holding her gradually lost strength, and his body slowly sank down. She forcefully grabbed onto his arm, and with a push of her feet, she quickly swam to the surface. With a bow sound, 2 wet heads finally emerged from the water. Chapter 511. His eyes were closed, and his face was pale. His thin lips did not have a trace of blood, looking like he was asleep. She knew that he had fainted from suffocation. Thinking of how he became like this to save her, she felt her heart tremble, and she could not control herself. Holding his head, she quickly swam to the shore. Once she reached the shore, she immediately began to save him. She had learned basic first aid techniques, so she knew that Mo Chuan would be fine. Sure enough, after a few compressions, he began to react. He spat out the water in his stomach and forcefully coughed a few times before slowly opening his eyes. When those clear eyes opened, she let out a low cry. Her eyes turned red, and she threw herself into his embrace, tightly hugging him. Mo Chuan, she wanted to say something, but her throat was choked and tears began to fall. She was truly afraid, extremely afraid. She was afraid that she would never find him again, afraid that he would never open his eyes again. Mo Chuan slowly raised his hand and hugged her. He hugged her tighter and tighter, so tight that she couldn't breathe. Her entire body was drenched and cold like ice. He was the same, but his body was warm, and it was getting hotter and hotter, especially his chest. It was like a ball of fire was burning, and it warmed her body up. She was no longer shivering. He was in a daze for a while, feeling like he was dreaming. But a dream would not be this real. He could clearly feel her hot tears wetting his clothes and flowing to his chest. Her body was very soft, but it was gently trembling in his embrace. He raised his hand and touched her wet black hair, her face that was covered in tears and river water, and her small and smooth chin. Ninger, it's a good thing you're fine. He only said these words in a low voice. Then he took her face in his hands and kissed her lightly on the lips. Her lips were cool and soft, stained with the tears that flowed down her cheeks. The tip of his tongue tasted that faint saltiness, and his chest was filled with emotions, almost boiling. At the bottom of the pitch-black river, he really thought that he was going to lose her forever. He already did not want to live in despair. Luckily, she was fine. She was in his embrace, and he was tightly hugging her, gently kissing her. This was not a dream. She closed her eyes, and for a moment, she almost lost consciousness. Then the warmth on her lips woke her up. She vaguely remembered that when she was drunk, they had been intimate like this before. The familiar warmth was like a wave that filled her heart, turning her into a warm pool of water. The spring grass grew on the riverbank, covering the two figures. In the darkness, only their rapid breathing and heartbeats could be heard. Their clothes were soaked, but their bodies were becoming hotter and hotter. His lips became scorching hot, and he gradually lost control of himself. His fiery hands touched her slender and soft neck and slowly moved under her drenched collar, touching her round and soft shoulders. Her skin was as cool and smooth as jade, making him linger. His breathing became even more chaotic, and his forehead was covered in sweat as his heart beat even faster. No, I'll stop. It took a lot of effort for him to move his lips away from hers. He propped himself up and gasped for air. Chapter 512. No, she felt his body stiffen and wanted to stand up. She wrapped her arms around his neck, not letting him leave. She whispered in his ear, "I'm willing." After experiencing life and death and separation, she suddenly felt that she was too stupid in the past. Since the two of them were in love, why would she follow those damn rules? She should do what she liked with the person she liked, boldly doing it and happily doing it. Otherwise, wouldn't she have lived this life in vain? Her hand slid down from his neck and down his firm back, falling onto his waist. She could feel that his entire body was tense, and he must be restraining himself very hard. He was afraid of hurting her, right? Actually, for this matter, it didn't matter who would hurt who. As long as he liked her and she liked him, what was wrong with that? In the darkness, Imo-chuan couldn't see her face or her expression, but her low and lingering voice entered his ears, almost making him collapse. Why didn't he refuse? Why was he willing? Why? Why? He struggled with himself, struggling with the desire in his heart. No, he definitely couldn't. But his hand went against his will and slid down her shoulder inch by inch until it reached her chest. Her heart was beating in his palm. Pung, 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 pung. Truly beautiful. It made him feel ecstasy. Stop. Imo-chuan, do you want to continue like this and make an irredeemable mistake? A cold voice sounded in his heart, making his body violently tremble. He suddenly left her body and jumped in the nearby river with a plop. Imo-chuan, Chen-ning was shocked. She wanted to charge over to save him, but he came out of the river soaking wet. The ice-cold water had already extinguished the flames on his body. His body was dripping water, and he was in a very sorry state. He didn't look like a ruler at all, but he didn't care at all. He pulled her over and smiled at her. Then he gently hugged her and gently stroked her hair. Ning, we can't be like this right now. I want to leave this moment for our wedding night. I want to openly marry you and be my only wife in this life. I believe that this day will definitely come. Do you believe me? His handsome face was hidden in the darkness, but his voice was as clear as a spring, stirring her heart. Her eyes suddenly became hot, and tears almost flowed out. I believe you. I believe you. I believe that this day will definitely come. She buried her head in his chest and tightly hugged his waist. What emperor? What empress? She didn't care at all. She only cared about Mo Chuan as a person. He understood her, so he said that he would take her as his only wife and not as his empress. In this moment, she felt that their hearts had never been this close before. However, will there really be such a day? Her heart once again filled with pain. Just now, she was truly willing to give it to him, but he was too much of a gentleman, too much respect for her. He did not want her to suffer even the slightest bit of harm. Even in this kind of matter, he used such a harsh attitude to restrain himself. It was this kind of restraint and respect that allowed her to feel the love and pity he had for her. In this life, she did not choose the wrong person. Chapter 513. Achoo! A gust of cold wind blew by, and Chun Ning suddenly sneezed. Mo Chuan finally realized that she was still wearing wet clothes. Standing by the river, he felt a burst of pain in his heart. He picked her up and used his qin gong to fly away. Mo Chuan, where are you taking me? Aren't we going back to the eldest princess palace? Chun Ning found that he was actually taking her out of the city. They were traveling through the forest, and she found it strange. You can't let her see you like this, Mo Chuan replied. His face was slightly red, and he did not dare look at her. At this time, the morning light was shining and the sky was brightening. Her thin, wet clothes were tightly clinging to her body. Her curves were exquisite, and it really attracted people's attention. Chun Ning was stunned for a second before understanding. Her lips slightly pursed, and she revealed a gentle smile. What is this place? She found that there was a large courtyard built in the middle of the forest. Mo Chuan carried her and jumped over the wall. It was as if he was returning to his own home. This is the palace's other courtyard, and there is a hot spring inside. You're cold, so you need to soak in it to drive away the cold. He charged into the back courtyard and went around a tree wall that was as tall as two people. Chun Ning could already smell the smell of sulfur in the air. Yeah, there really is a hot spring. Her eyes lit up. He placed her on the edge of the hot spring and still did not look at her. He immediately turned around and said, I'll go get some clean clothes. You wash them. After saying this, his figure passed through the tree wall and quickly disappeared. It seemed as if he was fleeing in panic. Chun Ning's lips curled up as she smiled at the direction he disappeared in. He was too much a gentleman. He had already hugged her and kissed her. Did he still need to be this polite to her? This ancient man, he really was pedantic, but she liked this kind of him. If it was Chu Xiaoyang, he would have been frivolous with her. She suddenly bit her lips. Damn, why did she think of that man at this time? When she thought of him, she felt a dull pain in her chest. The surface of the pool was covered in a thin layer of white mist. She bent down and scooped up some spring water. The water was warm, and it released a kind of seductive charm, making all the pores on her body open in comfort. The entire hot spring was surrounded by a dense wall of trees, just like a natural barrier. She took off her wet clothes and stepped into the pool. The hot water quickly enveloped her body and dispelled the chill from her body. She closed her eyes in satisfaction and leaned her head against the stone pillow beside the pool. She relaxed her body and half floated in the water. Her black hair floated on the water of the water, and her face that was as white as jade. It was a faint pink, making her look like a sleeping spirit. It was unknown when a black-clothed figure had appeared on top of the tree wall. His face was covered with a black cloth, revealing only a pair of black and shiny eyes. His eyes fell on the surface of the water that was enshrouded in white mist, and a hint of joy flashed in his eyes. He jumped down from the tree wall and jumped into the hot spring pool. With a plop sound, a large splash was made. Chun Ning had already fallen asleep, but she was suddenly woken up by the sound of water. Opening her eyes, she saw that there was a black-clothed man in the hot spring, and she let out a surprised cry. The black-clothed man was about to take off his clothes when the white mist on the water dissipated. A beautiful girl's face appeared in front of him. Chapter 514. Kobisimilatu. The black-clothed man suddenly opened his mouth to say this. He stared at her without blinking, his eyes filled with surprise and joy. He had been attracted by the smell of sulfur, but he never thought that there would be a rare pearl hidden in the sulfur pond. This person wasn't Imo Chuan. When the black-clothed man spoke, Chun Ning could hear it. His pronunciation was strange, and she couldn't understand a single word. Her face instantly turned white. She immediately covered her chest with her hands and submerged herself into the water. She was clearly submerged in the hot spring water, but her limbs felt cold and stiff. "Get out!" She gritted her teeth, and her eyes were like a fierce little beast as she stared at the strange man. She never thought that there would be a stranger here. Because Imo Chuan was here, he would not let her be in danger. But where did this man come from? Could it be that Imo Chuan had encountered danger? Otherwise, he would have heard what was happening here and would have rushed over to save her. Hearing her speak, the black-clothed man gave a laugh from his throat. His eyes changed, and he spoke again. "Tell me, who are you?" This time he spoke with perfect articulation. She understood every word, but her heart sank, because she found that this man was walking towards her step by step. She retreated, but the pond was only this big, and she was naked. Even if she retreated, where could she go? She forcefully bit her lips and suddenly shouted, "Imo Chuan, save!" The word "me" did not even have time to come out before the black-clothed man charged at her like a cheetah, covering her mouth. She immediately opened her mouth and bit down on his finger. She forcefully bit down and instantly tasted blood in her mouth. The man's eyes flashed with a sinister look, and a cold aura filled her, looking very terrifying. He grabbed her hair and pulled her back forcefully. She felt the pain and had no choice but to let go of her teeth. Her pale lips were stained with bright red blood. That was his blood. She angrily stared at him. Her eyes were no longer clear and charming. Rather, they were filled with a wild and unyielding nature. "Rogue, let me go," she cursed through gritted teeth. This man was definitely not a gentleman, but someone who harbored evil intentions. He clearly saw her naked in the spring, but he still came to bother her. If he wasn't a rogue, then what was he? The man's eyes narrowed, as if he was stunned. Then he slowly opened his mouth, saying each word very slowly. "My surname is not Liu, and I'm not called Liu Ho. Tell me who you are, and I'll let you go." She closed her mouth, and her eyes suddenly lit up. She closed her mouth, and her eyes lit up. He appeared behind the black-clothed man. His face was expressionless, but his eyes were as cold as ice and as sharp as a sword. He held a branch that he had just broken off, and the tip of the branch was pointed at the black-clothed man's nape. "Let her go, or I'll take your life," he coldly said. The black-clothed man's body froze. Clearly, he never thought that there would be someone behind him. The branch in Imo Chuan's hand moved forward, and he felt the back of his neck go numb. He knew that he was being controlled by someone and couldn't help being angry and anxious as he scolded. "Who are you? What kind of hero are you to launch a sneak attack? Bullying a woman, what kind of hero are you?" Imo Chuan said in a cold voice. Chapter 5:15. You're seeking death. Imo Chuan was filled with rage as he stabbed out with the branch. Who would have thought that at this time, the man would suddenly bury his head and fall into the spring water? Imo Chuan's stab hit thin air, but he had already expected the other side to make this move. His long arm reached out and grabbed Chun Ning's wrist, freeing her from the man's grip. The moment her body left the water, he raised his right hand, and a snow-white dress wrapped around her body. She floated through the air, and the white dress that was lifted by the wind was like layers of blooming lily petals. It was so beautiful that it could move people's hearts. In the next moment, she had already fallen into Imo Chuan's warm embrace. "Ninger, are you all right?" As soon as he asked this, he heard the hua-la sound of water. That person sent out a palm from the bottom of the water, and a wall of water came at him and her. His left palm came out and slammed into the wall of water. With a large hua sound, the wall of water collapsed, and crystal-clear water droplets scattered in all directions. At this time, the man broke out of the water and gave a long laugh. He jumped onto the wall of trees with a wonderful posture. It seemed like his qigong was not below Imo Chuan's. He turned around and winked at Chun Ning again. With a smile, he said, "Little beauty, I'll come back to find you." After saying this, he jumped out and disappeared behind the wall of trees. Bastard, you still want to run? Mo Chuan carried her as he jumped over the wall. Seeing that the man was several feet away, he knew that he wouldn't be able to catch up to him while carrying her, but it was impossible for him to put her down. He used all his strength and forcefully threw out the branch in his hand. The wind whistled as it shot out at the man's back. It was like the man had eyes on the back of his head. He suddenly turned his hand and caught the branch in his hand before forcefully throwing it back. It's impolite not to reciprocate. Have a taste of my strength. The branch turned into a sharp arrow that shot out at Mo Chuan's chest. Mo Chuan's lips curled into a cold smile, not dodging at all. When the branch was a foot in front of him, it suddenly changed directions and stabbed into the ground. With a pu sound, half of it went into the ground, showing how strong the man's internal energy was. But why did he shoot in the wrong direction? Mo Chuan was filled with doubt when he heard the man say with a laugh, "I was just scaring you. Don't treat me like a sick cat. I can't bear to hurt my little beauty." The laughter gradually faded away, and before the sound died away, the person had already passed away. Mo Chuan looked in the direction the man left in, but he didn't chase. Ning, did he do anything to you? He lowered his head to look at her. His gaze lingered on her body for a moment before quickly moving away. Ning found it funny seeing his face turn red. She didn't do anything, but he was already embarrassed. For a moment, she couldn't suppress the thought of teasing him. He. She suddenly bit his chest and said in a hateful voice, "Why did you come so late, making me?" Her voice choked, and her eyes turned red. Mo Chuan's hand tightened, and his heart filled with pain. Mo Chuan's heart. Because he was the same as her, he never thought that there would be an intruder in this remote courtyard, and he didn't dare to stay by the side of the hot spring. He was afraid that if he heard the sound of her bathing inside, he would be distracted and lose control of himself. Chapter 516. When he rushed over, the scene that he saw almost made his blood boil. He saw a strange man grab her and press her against the side of the pool. Her lips were stained with bright red blood, and it was shocking to the eyes. Her complexion was like snow, her hair was like clouds, and her smooth, snow-white shoulders were exposed outside the pool. It was clear that she was not wearing a single piece of clothing. Even he almost had a nosebleed when he saw this scene. Which man in this world could resist such temptation? In the time he wasn't here, what had happened? He almost did not dare think about it. It's my fault, I didn't make it in time. His heart twisted into a ball, and the pain was hard to endure. It was because of his negligence that he made such a big mistake, causing her to suffer this kind of humiliation. He would take responsibility for his mistake. His arms tightly hugging her, he quickly ran into a room and placed her on the bed. He pulled a brocade blanket over her body, covering her tightly, only revealing her black hair and her snow-white face. He sat on the side of the bed and stared at her without blinking. Her eyes were slightly red, and there were tears in her big, clear eyes. She looked at him like a child who had been wronged, and it made his heart wrench. Suddenly, he reached out his hand and covered her eyes. If she kept looking at him like that, he would feel so guilty that he would cut himself a few times. Ninger, I will find that man and chop him up bit by bit to feed the dogs. As long as he is dead, you will still be clean. He said this word for word. His voice was as cold as a knife and was filled with a bone-chilling intent. Chen Ning's eyes opened wide as she was stunned. What did he mean? Was she not clean? Feeling her tremble, he immediately hugged her tightly and firmly said in her ear, "No matter what happened just now, you have to forget it and never think about it again. I don't care. I really don't care. In my heart, you will always be the same, never changing at all." Chen Ning bit her lips, trying not to laugh as her body trembled. His imagination was too rich. Did he think that the man had done something to her? All right, this misunderstanding was caused by her. She just wanted to test his reaction. If she was really, what would he do? She was very satisfied with his answer. Mo Chuan, do you want to know what just happened? She suddenly whispered in his ear. His body instantly froze, and he quickly shook his head, No, if you don't want to say it, you don't need to tell me. I know everything. But you clearly don't know anything. She gently blew into his ear, and without any surprise, she saw a red blush spread from his ear to his neck. On the boat, she had already noticed that his ear was too sensitive. She had accidentally bit it, and his arm had lost strength, causing her to fall into the river. Ninger, stop playing. Mo Chuan did his best to control his breathing as he held her shoulders. He gritted his teeth and said, "All right, tell me, just what happened?" She blinked innocently and said, "Actually, nothing happened." Chapter 517. After she said that, she blinked her big, bright, and innocent eyes at him. He stared at her and then let out a soft sigh. So it was like this. It was not as serious as he had imagined. But why did he think it was this serious? It was clearly her deliberately making him misunderstand, making him think that something serious had happened. He wasn't stupid at all. He could clearly see that there was a faint smile in her eyes that was pretending to be innocent. This mischievous girl, she was trying to scare him and tease him again. Could it be that she didn't know that her words almost made him want to bang his head against the wall in guilt? If it wasn't for the fact that she had just been frightened, he really wanted to turn her over and give her a good spanking on her, but Chun Ning's brows slowly stood up when she saw him. Her eyes slowly filled with anger, and the lines on her chin tightened. This is bad. She had gone too far. She had angered this temperamental man again. I'm tired, I want to sleep. You should leave now. She pulled up the blanket and covered herself up like an ostrich. You're tired? You want to sleep? She heard his words through the blanket and forcefully nodded. Perfect. This one is also tired and wants to sleep. How about you serve this one in bed? He openly took off his shoes and laid down beside her, reaching out to pull her blanket. Her eyes widened, and she almost doubted her own ears. What did he say? Serve in bed. She could not react for a moment. The blanket was pulled away by him, and he entered her bed, bringing with him a cool aura. She had just shivered when he suddenly hugged her. His body was warm as he tightly pressed against her. She only had a thin layer of clothes on her body, and her delicate skin was very sensitive. When he hugged her, she suddenly revealed a smile. All right, I'll serve in bed for you. I've never served in bed before. So teach me. How do I serve in bed? She became interested, and her cherry-red lips opened as she chattered on. Mo Chuan was stunned, and the arm holding her suddenly stiffened. Bedside service? It means to sleep with you, right? How are you going to sleep with your clothes on? I'll help you take off your clothes. Woo, why is your belt so tight? Why can't it be undone? All right, it's finally undone. I've taken off my clothes. Do you want to take off your pants? She tore herself from his arms and began to unbuckle his belt, unfasten his coat, and touch the waistband of his trousers. Mo Chuan was completely stunned. He never thought that his beloved girl would be this bold and wild. Simply, was he the man or was she the man? He had originally wanted to use the word bed service to scare her, but he had never thought that the person who was scared was himself. Ninger, stop messing around. The corner of his mouth twitched as he tightly held onto his pants, afraid that she would pull it down. Chen Ning giggled. Seeing his increasingly red face, she smiled and said, Don't you want to sleep? Do you usually sleep with your pants on? Mo Chuan's eyes turned dark, and he took a deep breath. His hands grabbed her hands that were moving around his waist, and he said in a deep voice, Be obedient and don't move otherwise. He looked at her with a threatening gaze. She was not afraid at all as she raised her brows and said with a smile, Otherwise what? Chapter 518. She liked to see him blush when she teased him. It was much better than his usual indifferent face without any makeup, especially when he used the word bed service to scare her. When she heard it, she almost couldn't help laughing. This Mo Chuan, how could he be this cute? Mo Chuan didn't know what to do with her at all. He was now suspecting that the girl he liked was a demoness. She wasn't afraid of anything other people were afraid of. Not only did she dare say what other people didn't dare say, she even dared to do it. She even dared to take off his pants. Looking at the entire world, There was no one who dared to take off his dragon pants like this. She was definitely the first and the last. Ning. He held her and turned around, pressing her under his body. What? You don't want me to sleep with you? She looked at him with a smile. I do, but not now. Wait until the day we consummate our marriage, he gently said as he gently looked at her. That intoxicated spring water like eyes instantly melted her. All right, she said in a soft voice. She put away her smile and stopped joking around. Her heart was filled with warmth, and her eyes were hazy like she was drunk. She slowly reached out her arms and wrapped them around his neck. Looking up, she gently kissed his chin. Mo Chuan's throat slightly moved. He looked down at her pink lips and almost couldn't help kissing them. But he couldn't. His heart was already running wild. If he kissed her, the consequences would be unimaginable. After spending a lot of effort, he finally controlled himself to leave her. He wrapped the blanket around her and placed a kiss on her forehead before saying in a soft voice, "Go to sleep." He looked at her with pity. Her eyes were dim like stars. She was clearly tired, but she was still forcing herself to talk to him. Actually, he was the same. He always felt that the time he spent with her passed very quickly. It was like they only spoke a few words, and time flew by like water. But he could only stay by her side for this little bit. When she woke up, he would have to send her back to the eldest princess palace, and he didn't know when they would meet again. I'm not sleepy. I want to talk to you. She couldn't bear to close her eyes. When she opened them again, she didn't know if she could see him again. No, be a good girl and sleep for me, he habitually ordered her. I'm not sleeping. She stubbornly opened her eyes wide. Sleep. Then, tell me a story. Maybe I'll fall asleep while listening to it. She rolled her eyes. She didn't want to hear a story. She just wanted to hear his clear voice like flowing water. No matter what he said, she would be happy to hear it. Story? He was stunned and shook his head. I don't know how. You've never heard a story? When you were young, didn't the Empress Dowager tell you stories to coax you to sleep? She asked curiously. No, never. He shook his head again, and a hint of sadness flashed across his eyes. From the beginning of his memories, he had never heard of any stories. Although Empress Dowager Zhou was his birth mother, he was taken away from Empress Dowager Zhou's side when he was born. According to the rules of the palace, a birth mother could not directly raise an imperial child, so he grew up with a wet nurse. The wet nurse was only responsible for taking care of his food and daily life. How could she tell him stories to coax him to sleep? Chapter 519. As he grew older, he began to study politics. Until he ascended to the throne, he talked about military matters every day and talked about the heroes of the world. How could he tell stories to coax people to sleep? It's fine. I'll tell you stories in the future. Ning saw a flash of sadness in his eyes and understood something. She reached out from the blanket and slowly held his large palm. Her palm was as soft as cotton. He gently held it, not willing to use too much strength as he revealed a faint smile to her. All right, then tell me a story. I want to hear the story of the Big Bad Wolf and Little Red Riding Hood. He thought a night she got drunk and kept saying she was Little Red Riding Hood. He had always been curious. What was Little Red Riding Hood? He had never heard of it before. Pooh! When Ning heard this, she almost spat out. Her bright eyes popped out and all of her drowsiness flew away. She stared at Mo Chuan with incomparable shock. How did he know about the Big Bad Wolf and Little Red Riding Hood? Could it be? Mo Chuan, you also transmigrated here? She excitedly sat up. What transmigrated here? Mo Chuan did not understand. The Big Bad Wolf and Little Red Riding Hood. If you didn't transmigrate here, how would you know this story? Quickly tell me, what era did you transmigrate from? Are you also a Chinese? Ning could not control the excitement in her heart. Her hands tightly grabbed Mo Chuan's hand as her cheeks turned red and her eyes sparkled. This was truly a long drought meeting sweet dew, meeting an old friend in a foreign land. Ninger, what Chinese are you talking about? What era? Mo Chuan was confused. The more he heard, the more confused he became. He knit his brows and looked at her with doubt. Ning, are you too sleepy? Why are your words becoming more and more confused? Do you not even remember what era it is now? We're Chinese. I am the West Chu Emperor, and we are all from West Chu. He broke free of her hand and felt her forehead. He felt that it was a bit hot, so he placed her back in a blanket and seriously said, "Obediently lie down. I'll find a doctor to see you." Chun Ning began to realize that she had made a big mistake, and her face became even hotter. "Don't find a doctor. I'm fine. This blanket is just too thick and too hot." She reached out from the blanket and grabbed his clothes. "Tell me, how do you know about the big bad wolf and Little Red Riding Hood?" "Damn, when you were drunk, you said you were Little Red Riding Hood and I was the big bad wolf. You also said that I would eat you." "What? You don't remember?" He revealed a faint smile. Thinking of that night, he felt a warm feeling. "Damn, why do I keep saying nonsense when I'm drunk? I actually don't remember. I don't know." She rubbed her head in regret and looked at him with a guilty conscience. She stammered, "That Mo Chuan, did I say anything I shouldn't have said that day?" She couldn't possibly have told him that she was a transmigrator, right? Mo day. Chun of the matter. Chun up to the topic. When Chun Ning heard this, her heart became even more guilty. She said in a small voice, "Then tell me, what did I say that I shouldn't have said? It's all words that should be beheaded." He displayed the dignity of an emperor and said in a deep voice, "Do you want this one to repeat them to you?" She became even more curious and nodded. Anyways, he wasn't willing to cut off her head. "Not only did you curse this one, you even hit this one. Have you forgotten all of this?" Chun Ning let out another shocked cry as her hands tightly covered her face. Ning said, I chun chun I chun I chun I chun I. She was embarrassed and angry. She couldn't help glaring at him. If she didn't like him, why would she take the initiative to kiss him? Did he want to force her to say it? Chapter 521. It's true. Every word is true. Mo Chuan, I like you. I really like you. She was ready to go all out. Since there was only the two of them here, there was no need for her to be shy. She had said and done things that were more shy than this. So what was there for her to be afraid of? Mo Chuan smiled. He liked her like this. She would never be like those hypocritical, rich young ladies. If she dared to do something, she dared to say it. The only bad thing was that her words made him fly into the sky. If she didn't give him a ladder, he didn't know how to get down. Mo Chuan, I like you. Then, do you like me? She raised her eyelashes and looked at him with eyes as bright as the stars. Silly girl, did you even need to ask this? He gently looked at her with eyes as deep as water, like intoxicating wine. She didn't need to drink it to be intoxicated by his eyes. I like you. I really, really like you, he replied in a low voice, each word coming from the bottom of his heart. He lowered his head and his forehead touched hers. He pulled her hand and placed it on his chest, letting her feel his heart beating faster and faster. Ninger, can you feel it? Can you feel how much I like you? His heart powerfully beat in her hand. I've placed you here. No one can take you away from here. No one can do it. In this world, there is nothing sweeter and more intoxicating than the words between lovers. Chun Ning felt like her entire body had been submerged in this intoxicating sea of honey. She closed her eyes and leaned against him, feeling his strong and powerful heartbeat. Even the sound of his heartbeat was so pleasant to listen to. Feel it and see how fast this heart is beating. It's beating for you. Suddenly, a strong and powerful voice sounded in her ears. She was surprised and opened her eyes, feeling incomparably shocked. It was Chu Xiaoyang. This voice clearly belonged to Chu Xiaoyang. A sharp pain suddenly came from the depths of her chest, and her face lost all color. Her chest was so tight that she couldn't breathe. She forcefully grabbed the clothes on her chest and revealed a painful look. Chu Xiaoyang. She muttered these three words. Ninger, what's wrong? What did you say? Mo Chuan hugged her. She fell into his embrace with a face as white as paper. Her eyes were tightly closed, and she had already fainted. Ninger, Ninger, he loudly shouted in her ears, but she did not move at all. Her face was snow white and her hair was black. She was so quiet that it seemed like she was asleep. Mo Chuan's heart was being grabbed by an invisible hand. His face turned as white as paper and his lips trembled, not daring to test her breathing. Why did she suddenly faint? What did he say? What did he do? His fingers trembled as he tried to feel her breathing, but he felt that her breathing was very faint. Unable to avoid suspicion, he pressed his face against her chest to listen to her heartbeat. Her heartbeat was erratic, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. She was to say, as long as she was still breathing, he would never let anything happen to her. There were the best imperial physicians in the court of imperial physicians. She would definitely wake up, definitely. He wrapped her up tightly in the brocade quilt and held her in his arms. Just as he stepped out of the room, he suddenly felt the sunlight piercing his eyes. Chapter 522. The most important thing was that he had forgotten one of his most important duties as the emperor, morning court. Ever since he ascended the throne, he had been diligent every day, doing everything himself, never missing morning court. Even when he was pretending to be an assassin and acting as her bodyguard, he did not miss a single day. But today, he had completely forgotten about it. But he couldn't care about it now. To him, there was nothing more important than her. Mo Chuan's brows flashed with a determined look. He tightly hugged her and released his qinggong, flying towards the royal city. Asterisk at the same time, Empress Dowager Zhou in the Longevity Palace received the news, and her face filled with rage. What did you say? The emperor doesn't have morning court? Then where is he now? Call him over for this widow. She had always been calm and composed, but now she raised her hand and smashed her most beloved teacup. Empress Dowager, please calm your anger. The emperor is not in the palace right now, and this servant has already sent people to find the emperor. Once there is news, I will immediately report it to the Empress Dowager. Su Jin carefully replied, Go to the eldest princess palace. Empress Dowager Zhou spoke again in a cold voice. The emperor is also not in the eldest princess palace. Su Jin hesitated. Not in? Impossible. Empress Dowager Zhou sat on the couch while panting. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She forcefully slapped the table and shouted, Go to the eldest princess palace and summon the Ding Yuan princess into the palace. Su Jin shook her head and said, This servant has already sent people to find her, but the princess is not in the palace. When Empress Dowager Zhou heard this, her face turned livid and her hands couldn't stop trembling. Could it be the emperor eloped with that girl, surnamed Chun? Impossible. She had watched the emperor grow up, and she had spent a lot of effort to raise him. He had the heavy responsibility and lifeline of the West Chu country on his shoulders. He definitely would not do such a disgraceful and reckless thing. However, Empress Dowager Zhou pondered this, and her two thin brows knit together. No matter how rational and calm the emperor was, he was still a young man in his 20s. How could he resist the temptation of a charming girl like this? If the two of them were impulsive and did something that couldn't be controlled, what should they do? Even if the two of them didn't elope, not returning for the night and making the emperor forget to go to court, what good thing could they do? She was filled with regret now. Why did she not get rid of that girl earlier because of her soft heart, causing this kind of hard-to-deal with result? Then tell eldest princess and Lu to immediately come to the palace to see this widow. The person is not in her palace. This widow will just find her to find. If it wasn't for this girl being a busybody, that girl surnamed Chun would have already returned to the King Ding Yuan palace. How could she give the emperor a chance? This widow must properly teach this girl a lesson. Empress Dowager Zhou was filled with rage, instantly venting her anger on eldest princess and Lu. Empress Dowager, this servant has something to say, but I don't know if I should say it or not. Su Jin looked at Empress Dowager Zhou's expression. Although she was afraid, she still bravely said this. Princess and eldest Tatu, Su Su of De Su Su Su, B B B B B B B B B B. Su Jin, you're getting bolder and bolder. Under Empress Dowager Zhou's rage, she even went against Su Jin. With a sweep of her hand, all the teacups on the table fell to the ground. Empress Dowager, please calm your anger. It is this servant's fault. If you are angry, you could just scold this servant. Please don't harm your body. Chapter 5:23. You think that after serving this widow for so many years, this widow can't bear to hit or punish you? Empress Dowager Zhou coldly said without any expression on her face. This servant accepts the beating and punishment. All right, this widow will punish you with 2 years of salary. What did you want to say just now? Empress Dowager Zhou relaxed her tone. Su Jin bit her lips and said in a small voice, Empress Dowager, for the emperor and the princess reputation, this servant feels that it is not good to make a big fuss about this. How about we send people to secretly search for the emperor? This servant believes that the emperor will not disappoint the Empress Dowager's expectations. There should be an accident that happened, so the emperor did not have time to come back from morning court. Her words were like a bucket of cold water that poured over Empress Dowager Zhou's head, instantly extinguishing a lot of her anger. Not bad, not bad. In Empress Dowager Zhou's anger, she had forgotten about this point. She slowly nodded and said to Su Jin, stand up. What you say is reasonable. Immediately send people to secretly search for the emperor. As for eldest princess and Lu, give this widow a decree and have her reflect on her mistakes. Without this widow's decree, she is not allowed to take a single step out of the palace. When Su Jin heard this, she let out a sigh of relief and replied, yes, Empress Dowager. This servant will do it now. When she turned to leave, she was stopped by Empress Dowager Zhou. Go, bring that Shao Si by the emperor's side for this widow. This widow has something to ask him. Yes. Su Jin complied and left. She was secretly breaking out in a cold sweat for Shao Si. When Shao Si heard Empress Dowager Zhou's call, his body was covered in sweat. He instinctively knew that this was bad. The emperor was missing, and even he, a personal eunuch, did not know where he was. If the Empress Dowager asked about it, he would not be able to escape the blame. If Empress Dowager Zhou was angered, a light punishment would be a beating on his butt. If it was heavy, perhaps his head would be removed from his neck. Aunt Su Jin, can you tell Shao Si, why is the Empress Dowager calling this servant? He followed behind Su Jin, walking to the peaceful life palace while asking this question in an uneasy manner. Su Jin angrily looked at him. You still have the face to ask? You've lost the emperor, and the Empress Dowager is looking for you. Shao Si's expression immediately became bitter. Aunt Su Jin, aren't you wrongly accusing this servant? This leg was grown on the emperor's leg, and the emperor's martial arts were so good, so he could go wherever he wanted. Shao Si was only a servant. How could he control the emperor's wishes? If the Empress Dowager blames me, I ask Aunt Su Jin to say a few good words for me. Su Jin gave a snort. Su Jin, I only you say one thing. This servant will be the Su many years. Many years of many good. So many people. When Shao Si heard this, he was so scared that his legs went soft. Auntie Su Jin, this servant won't go see the Empress Dowager. You've served the Empress Dowager for so many years, but the Empress Dowager was angry and punished you with 2 years of salary. If this servant says anything wrong, I won't be able to keep my head. Minnie, do you dare to disobey the Empress Dowager's summons? Dower, this many, you dare to go. Dower the Su, Dowager Su, many high you the Su to the one. Aunt Su Jin, this servant really doesn't know anything. Shao Si almost knelt down to her. Although he knew martial arts, he did not dare struggle. He allowed Su Jin to pull his ear and bring him in front of Empress Dowager Zhou. Chapter 5:24. Empress Dowager Zhou had already recovered her calm demeanor. She picked up a cup of hot tea and slowly blew away the floating leaves. After taking a sip, she looked up at Shao Si, who was kneeling below. Su Jin, leave and close the door, she said in a calm voice, without a trace of anger in her voice. Xiao Xi's body suddenly trembled as he felt his heart skip a beat. The Empress Dowager had even sent out her most trusted Su Jin. This was a bad prelude. After Su Jin left, Empress Dowager Zhou remained silent. Her eyes were slightly closed, like she was resting. The atmosphere in the room was very heavy and subtle. Xiao Xi did not dare make a sound, afraid of waking up Empress Dowager Zhou. Even if his knees hurt from kneeling, he did not dare make a single sound. If he could, he would rather keep kneeling like this. It would be best if the Empress Dowager really fell asleep and forgot about him. But things didn't go as he wished. When he was trying his best to reduce his presence, he heard Empress Dowager Zhou's voice ring out. Xiao Xi, you're still not willing to speak? Empress Dowager Zhou's voice was calm, and her face was even calmer, but Xiao Xi's heart was in his throat. He lowered his eyes as he replied, "Whatever the Empress Dowager wants to ask, this servant will tell you everything I know. However, this servant really does not know the Emperor's whereabouts. I ask the Empress Dowager to investigate. Stop trying to act dumb in front of this widow. What this widow wants to know, you know in your heart. This servant is terrified. This servant really does not know what the Empress Dowager wants to ask." How could Xiao Xi not understand what Empress Dowager Zhou wanted to know? But he did not want to betray his master, so he tightly clenched his teeth. "Huh!" The hot tea in Empress Dowager Zhou's hand fell onto the golden brick floor in front of him. The hot tea splashed onto his face and body, but he did not dare make a sound. He could only grit his teeth and endure the pain. "Xiao Xi, stop playing tricks in front of this widow. This widow is not easy to fool. It's best if you tell me everything about how your master met the Chun family's girl. If you tell a single lie, this widow won't kill you. This widow will send you to the Clear Breeze house, and you won't be able to raise your head in front of your master for the rest of your life." Empress Dowager Zhou's voice was as cold as ice. Clear Breeze house. Xiao Xi shivered violently. Of course he knew what kind of place the Clear Breeze restaurant was. It was the most famous restaurant in the capital. The Empress Dowager was truly ruthless. If he really sent himself in, within 3 days, he wouldn't even look like a human or a ghost. Even if Master found him, how would he have the face to return to Master's side to serve him? "Empress or not?" Empress of Empress Dowager Zhou said. Empress Dowager Zhou of Qi. Emo Dowager Zhou said, Dowager Zhou Emo Dowager Shi, and said looked up. Dowager said, Dowager Empress, and said, Breeze Dowager said, and said, Empress, Dowager of Shi Dowager Chun said, Empress M. Empress Dowager, this servant actually doesn't know much. Xiao Xi gritted his teeth. He had no choice but to tell him how his master left the palace, how he met Chen Ning several times, and how his master disguised himself as an assassin to be Chen Ning's bodyguard in the King Dingyuan Palace. He told him everything in detail. Chapter 525. Empress Dowager Zhou finished listening without saying a word. Although her face was expressionless, her heart was filled with waves. She had always thought that her son fell in love with Chen Ning at first sight during the spring banquet. She was angry at her son's actions and hated Chen Ning even more. She must have wanted to climb up the ladder, so she seduced the emperor. Who would have thought that after learning of the matter, she would find that the one to blame was not Chen Ning, but rather her son who was the emperor. Listen to what he had done. He actually abandoned his position as the emperor and called himself an assassin to be that girl's bodyguard in the king's palace. If it wasn't for Xiao Xi personally saying it, she would not have believed that the calm and steady emperor's son would do such a strange thing. Speaking of this matter couldn't be blamed on that girl surnamed Chun. It was all her son's fault. When he became that girl's bodyguard, perhaps he had already been moved by that girl. But he clearly knew who that girl was. That was his niece's wife-in-law. How could he have these kinds of thoughts towards his niece's wife-in-law? Empress Dowager Zhou became angrier and angrier the more she thought about it. She couldn't breathe as she coughed and rolled her eyes. Empress Dowager. Xiao Xi saw that the situation was bad. He jumped up and began to massage Empress Dowager Zhou's back. After a while, Empress Dowager Zhou finally caught her breath, but her expression was extremely ugly. She looked up at Xiao Si and raised her hand. "Pa!" She gave Xiao Si a loud and clear slap on the face. "It's all your dog servant's fault. A good emperor has been led astray by you dog servants." Xiao Si quickly kneeled down. Yes, yes, yes. Although he had suffered a large slap, the stone in his heart fell to the ground. This was because he could hear that Empress Dowager Zhou's tone had become a bit gentler. She probably wouldn't send him to the Clear Breeze house in a fit of anger, so he couldn't help secretly wiping the sweat off his forehead. Empress Dowager Zhou rubbed her forehead and felt her temples throbbing with pain. This was truly a troublesome matter. When she found out, she found that this matter was more troublesome than she had imagined. The emperor actually did this kind of thing. It was completely out of her expectations. She couldn't help feeling disappointed and heartache. No, she had to take advantage of this situation before it got out of hand and cut off this ill-fated relationship for her son. No matter what, she couldn't let that girl ruin the emperor and ruin the West Chu country. Empress Dowager. Reporting to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager. Su Jin's excited voice came from outside the room. Hearing this, Empress Dowager Zhou and Xiao Si's eyes lit up. Empress Dowager came from the bed and personally opened the door. "Go, call the emperor over for me." Empress Dowager Zhou raised her brows raised. "King, Su." Empress Dowager Zhou's brows jumped up. "Speak, where is the emperor?" Empress Dowager, the emperor is now in the Imperial Hospital. Empress Dowager Su, King Dowager, Qing, Dowager Mu, she said. "Quickly prepare the sedan. I'm going to the Imperial Hospital." She rushed out, and Su Jin hurriedly supported her, saying in a low voice, "Empress Dowager, don't be anxious. His Majesty is fine, but something has happened to the princess." Chapter 5:26. When Empress Dowager Zhou heard this, she slowly nodded. "Very good. Go prepare the sedan. This widow will go to the doctor yard to see what kind of illness this princess has." She once again recovered her noble appearance, but Su Jin's heart suddenly turned cold. She couldn't help staring at Xiao Si. What did this brat say to the Empress Dowager? Asterisk in the doctor yard. With Dr. Zhang as the leader, several dozen doctors surrounded the bed, taking the pulse of the unconscious Chen Ning. After the doctors took her pulse, they all had serious expressions. No one said a word, and everyone looked at Dr. Zhang at the same time. In the entire doctor yard, Dr. Zhang was the oldest and had the best medical skills. He was also the most trusted by the emperor and the Empress Dowager. Therefore, all the imperial physicians followed his lead. Dr. Zhang stroked his snow-white goatee and his brows knit in thought. His eyes fell onto Chun Ning's face on the bed, and after thinking about it, he reached out to take the pulse of her left hand. Mo Chuan's calm face couldn't help revealing a look of worry. He stared at Dr. Zhang without blinking and finally waited for Dr. Zhang to take back his hand. He immediately asked in a deep voice, "Dr. Zhang, what illness does she have? Why did she suddenly faint? When will she wake up?" Dr. Zhang shook his head, but he didn't say a word. Mo Chuan's heart tightened again, and his breathing stopped. His handsome face turned pale. "Emperor, don't worry. This old minister's meaning is that the princess consort isn't sick at all." Dr. Zhang looked up to see Mo Chuan's expression. He was shocked and quickly explained. "Not sick? If she's not sick, why would she suddenly faint? Why hasn't she woken up?" Mo Chuan couldn't help knitting his brows. He always believed in Dr. Zhang's medical skills, but at this moment, he was filled with doubt. On the way back, no matter how he called out to her, she did not respond at all. If it wasn't for the fact that her heart was still beating and her body was still warm, he would have thought that he had lost her. This feeling of worrying to death almost tortured him to the point of insanity. He thought that Dr. Zhang would be able to cure her with his medical skills, but he never thought that Dr. Zhang would give him an answer. Not sick. Emperor, this old minister has a few words to say to the emperor alone. Dr. Zhang suddenly said. Mo Chuan was a bit stunned. Then he waved his hand, and all the doctors in the room left. Even the maids and eunuchs in the room disappeared. After everyone left, Imo Chuan's eyes sparkled as he stared at Dr. Zhang. His voice slightly trembled as he said, "Dr. Zhang, tell me the truth. Is it her? She has an incurable disease?" Dr. Zhang immediately shook his head. He looked at Mo Chuan with a complicated expression before lowering his head and saying, "This old minister wants to ask the emperor, when the princess consort fainted, was the emperor by the princess consort's side?" Mo Chuan immediately understood what Dr. Zhang wanted him to tell everyone to leave. Dr. Zhang's words, his eyes, his face, Mo Ling, he said, "Chining, Ling," he said, "Ing." Dr. Zhang couldn't help coughing. Mo Chuan's answer was within his expectations, but also outside of his expectations. Chapter 527. This time, it was Mo Chuan's turn to be shocked. His eyes turned to Dr. Zhang, and he nodded, "Yes." "Woo, then this old minister understands. The reason why the princess consort suddenly fainted, it must be because of the emperor's words," Dr. Zhang said while stroking his beard. But how could this one's words make her faint? Mo Chuan's heart skipped a beat. He thought back to when he grabbed her hand and told her how much he liked her. Could it be that she fainted from excitement after hearing his confession? Cuh. Dr. Zhang began to cough again. His eyes drooped as he said, "Emperor, this isn't the first time the princess consort has fainted. Yesterday, the princess consort also fainted like this once." "What did you say?" Mo Chuan's body trembled as he looked at Dr. Zhang in disbelief. "Emperor, please don't be too excited. The princess consort is fine, but she can't seem to be stimulated. As long as she is excited, she will fall unconscious. This old minister gave the princess consort a prescription yesterday that can help her calm her mind. So after the princess consort took the medicine, she quickly woke up, then hurry up and make the medicine." Mo Chuan couldn't help glaring at him. This old doctor was becoming more and more muddle-headed. He kept talking to him, but he didn't do the most important thing. No need. The princess consort is fine this time. As long as the emperor stays by her side, she will wake up before long. Dr. Zhang stroked his beard again and looked at the emperor with a meaningful gaze. He was very smart. He knew when to stop. For this kind of royal family matter, he only needed to be aware of it. He didn't want to get involved, otherwise he wouldn't even know when he lost his head. "Emperor, this old minister wants to leave first. He thought that he had nothing to do here, so it was best if he didn't stick around." "Wait a minute. Dr. Zhang, tell this one yesterday why did she faint?" Mo Chuan sat in front of the bed and held her hand. Her fingers were as cold as jade. Since Dr. Zhang had already seen through it, he didn't need to hide it in front of this old doctor. Moreover, he didn't want to keep hiding it. Dr. Zhang's old eyes were so embarrassed that he didn't know where to look. He said in a hesitant voice, "When this old minister arrived, the princess consort had already fainted, but King Dingyuan was by her side. According to this old minister's pulse, the princess consort seemed to have received a strong stimulation, so she fainted. Moreover, after the princess consort took the medicine, she fainted because His Highness was by her side." Chu Xiaoyang. Mo Chuan's pupil shrank as he said this word. He suddenly remembered that before she fainted, she had mumbled a name. It was Chu Xiaoyang. The reason why she fainted was definitely related to Chu Xiao. Damn, what did that bastard Chu Xiaoyang say to her? And what did he do? Mo Chuan forcefully clenched his fists, wishing he could immediately grab Chu Xiaoyang and ask him about this. "Emperor, please don't worry. The princess consort's pulse is already stable, and she will wake up soon. Cuh, this old minister will leave." Dr. Zhang picked up his medicine box and prepared to leave. "Dr. Zhang, bring the prescription you gave me yesterday and make another dose." Mo Chuan's expression had already returned to normal. He held Qinning's hand and stared at her face without blinking. Her face still didn't have a trace of blood. Chapter 528. Yes. This old minister will go make it now. Dr. Zhang replied as he left. The room was completely silent. Without Mo Chuan's orders, no one dared to come in, so they all stayed far away. Mo Chuan sat in front of the bed, holding her hand with a dark gaze. Although he was sitting there without moving, his heart was not as calm as he looked on the surface. Do. There was a knocking sound coming from the door as a little eunuch came in with the medicine. Get out. He did not even look at the little eunuch. This was because he saw her long and dense eyelashes gently tremble before slowly lifting up. His heart skipped a beat as he tightly held her hand and said in a trembling voice, "Ninger, you're awake?" Chen Ning opened her eyes. Her consciousness was still a bit hazy and the scene she saw was a bit blurry. But she heard a familiar voice. Her lips slightly moved and she spat out 2 words, "Mo Chuan." "I'm here." She felt her hand being tightly held by a burning hand. Her consciousness slowly came back and she blinked. She saw a pair of deep eyes that were like stars in a cold night. It was Mo Chuan. Her heart suddenly relaxed. What happened to me just now? Where am I? She turned her eyes and found that she was lying on an unfamiliar bed. She was surrounded by an unfamiliar environment, and the room was filled with the fragrance of medicine. This is the yard of doctors. When you were in the hot springs, you suddenly fainted, so I brought you here. The doctor has already seen you, and you're fine, but you have to drink the medicine first. Mo Chuan's face was very calm, and his voice was very gentle. He helped her up and let her lean against his chest. Then he picked up the bowl of medicine and brought it to his lips to test the temperature before bringing it to her lips. I fainted again. She knit her brows and raised her hand to touch her chest. Her heart was still beating, but it had calmed down a lot. The doctor said that you were too emotional, and this medicine has a calming effect. Come, drink the medicine. Chen Ning smelled the strong smell of medicine and wrinkled her nose. She said, I won't drink it. You just said that the doctor said I'm fine. I'm not sick at all, so I don't need to drink medicine. Her childish appearance made his heart soften, but thinking of her body, he still persisted. You have to drink it. He ordered. Whoa, I won't drink it. This medicine tastes bad. She turned her head. He stared at her, and his eyes darkened a bit. He used 2 fingers to pinch her chin and made her turn to look at him. If you don't drink it, I'll feed it to you, he said in a threatening tone. Even if you feed me, I won't drink it. Before she could finish her sentence, she saw him silently pick up the bowl of medicine and take a big gulp. Before she could react, his lips were already pressed against hers. With the experience of feeding alcohol once, he was already very familiar with the process of feeding medicine again. She was forced to drink a large mouthful of medicine. Her face turned red, and she glared at him in embarrassment and anger. You? His lips pressed against hers again, and the second mouthful of medicine entered her mouth. Mo Chuan, I won't. Woo! The medicine was very bitter, but her heart was very sweet. The bowl of medicine was unknowingly finished, but his lips did not leave her at all. He closed his eyes and kissed her passionately and warmly. A garden bloomed in her heart. Chapter 529. Empress Dowager Zhou's face was livid. Standing outside the window, she saw this scene through the small hole in the window paper. She did not know how long she had been standing outside the window, and how long she had been listening. With Mo Chuan's cultivation, he should have noticed that there was someone outside the window a long time ago. But his mind was in a daze, so he did not hear anything. Even if he heard it, he didn't care and didn't care. Although Su Jin did not see anything, seeing Empress Dowager Zhou's expression, she could already imagine what was happening in the room. Her heart began to beat fast, and she had a bad premonition. Empress Dowager Zhou left without saying a word. Su Jin quickly followed her. Only when they were far, far away from the yard of doctors did Empress Dowager Zhou slow down. She stood in the long palace road, looking up at a wild goose flying in the sky. Her face had already returned to normal, looking no different from usual. But Su Jin's heart was still beating fast. She stood beside Empress Dowager Zhou, not daring to breathe loudly. Su Jin, has King Jing returned? Empress Dowager Zhou suddenly said. Su Jin felt it was a bit strange, but she still respectfully replied, Yes, His Highness King Jing, and returned to the capital this morning. Very good. Immediately summoned King Jing and to the peaceful life palace to see this widow. After Empress Dowager Zhou said this, she coldly looked in the direction of the yard of doctors and said in a deep voice, "That girl can't be kept alive." Su Jin's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and she sucked in a cold breath. She said in a trembling voice, "Empress Dowager, could it be that you want His Highness King Jing and to—" She did not dare say anything else as her hands and feet turned soft from fear. She knew that Empress Dowager Zhou really wanted to kill him this time. That's right. Empress Dowager Zhou's eyes turned cold and her body slightly trembled. She closed her eyes, and the scene she had just seen appeared in front of her eyes once again. The good son she had painstakingly raised, the good emperor she had wholeheartedly helped him ascend to the throne, he actually did this kind of shameless thing? No. If she didn't do anything, the emperor would sink deeper and deeper until he couldn't pull himself out. Asterisk, royal grandmother. What did you say? Chu Xiaobai had just stepped into the capital, and the first person he came to see was Empress Dowager Zhou. But before he even said a few words, Empress Dowager Zhou sent everyone away and whispered a few words in his ears. When he heard this, his expression changed. He looked at Empress Dowager Zhou with a look of disbelief, almost not daring to believe what he had just heard. Empress Dowager Zhou revealed a tired look. After coming back from the doctor yard, she had been lying in bed the entire time, feeling very tired. She slightly closed her eyes and said to Chu Xiaobai, this widow knows that you listen to this widow the most. This widow can't trust anyone on this matter other than you. This widow believes that you won't disappoint this widow, this widow, and will, this widow, this widow will. Dowager Zhou Xiao, and said, King Dower Xiao's heart, Xiao Chu. Xiao to Dower, Dowager's heart. She looked was Xiao was Chu. Dower Chu. His heart said, he said. Chu. He, she, he, say, he. He to say, he, Dower. Eming looking Zhou, Empress Dowager Zhou, looking with her. And she looked, and. As long she looked, Chu Xiaobai couldn't help asking, Royal Grandmother, why do you want to kill third sister-in-law? Did she do something to betray Royal Grandmother? Chapter 530. Chu Xiaobai's face was filled with disbelief. He tightly held Empress Dowager Zhou's hand and begged, but Royal Grandmother, didn't you always like third sister-in-law? She even helped you copy the scriptures. Did you forget that? How could the words of a fortune-teller count? Empress Dowager Zhou's face sunk, and she revealed a look of displeasure. Xiaobai, this matter concerns the safety of the country. Even if this widow likes her, we can't put our West Chu in danger for a single girl. The fortune-teller said that if this girl isn't eliminated, West Chu will be in danger. If you can't do it, this widow will find someone else to do it. You just came back, so you must be tired. You should go back and rest. She gave the order for him to leave. Royal Grandmother. Chu Xiaobai wanted to beg again, but Empress Dowager Zhou had already pulled her hand back. She waved at him and said, You can leave. This widow is tired, so I want to rest. Chu Xiaobai was still kneeling in front of the bed, not moving at all. He forcefully gritted his teeth to the point they creaked, and his jet black and clear eyes were filled with pain. He knew that Empress Dowager Zhou was not joking. She really would make a move against Chen Ning. He never would have thought that as soon as he returned to the capital, Empress Dowager Zhou would give him this kind of task. It was a task that he couldn't do, and it was impossible for him to complete. But if he didn't agree, Empress Dowager Zhou would send someone else to do it. All right, Royal Grandmother, this matter, I'll leave it to Xiaobai. His heart was filled with pain. It was like someone was stabbing it with a knife. But he could not agree. He would rather let her die in his hands than allow someone else's knife to be stained with her blood. Xiaobai, this widow did not misjudge you. You really are the only good child this widow can trust. Empress Dowager Zhou happily patted his shoulder. Chu Xiaobai did not know how he left the peaceful life palace, and he did not know where he was going. He walked through the palace without knowing which direction to go. His heart was filled with pain, and he was at a loss. Empress Dowager Zhou's final words rang in his ears. If you don't bring her head back to see this widow, then you don't need to come back. It seemed like Empress Dowager Zhou was determined to take her life. What had happened in the few days he had been away from the capital? Why did the Empress Dowager suddenly change her mind and couldn't tolerate her? He really wanted to find someone to ask about it. But who should he ask? Who could tell him? Su Jin? But when Su Jin saw him, she hid faster than a rabbit. He knew that he couldn't get anything from Su Jin because Su Jin would never betray Empress Dowager Zhou. She wouldn't tell him a single word. But was he really going to kill her? Although she was his third sister-in-law in name, in his heart, she was the only girl he liked in this life. He loved her so much that he couldn't even bear to touch her finger. How could he kill her? He raised his head. His eyes were moist, and everything he saw was a blur. Thinking about it, it was really laughable. The thing that he had risked his life to protect. Now he had to personally destroy it. Wasn't this the greatest irony in the world? Chu Xiaobai stopped moving. He had already made his decision. Since he promised Empress Dowager Zhou, he had to do it. In this life, he had never done anything to disappoint Empress Dowager Zhou. Chapter 531. At this moment, Chen Ning had already returned to the eldest princess palace. Mo Chuan wanted to let her stay in the doctor yard, but she insisted on leaving. If she stayed in the palace with her status, she would definitely be criticized by others. She did not want to cause any more trouble for Mo Chuan, not to mention the fact that the palace gave her an invisible pressure that made it hard for her to breathe. Mo Chuan considered it for a bit before agreeing to her. However, when he thought of Chu Xiaoyang, his brows unknowingly knit together. He knew that Chu Xiaoyang's martial arts were not weak, and the eldest princess was far from being his match. If Chu Xiaoyang charged into the eldest princess palace to see her, perhaps none of the guards in the eldest princess palace could stop him. Zhue Feng, come in. He gently clapped his hands. Following that, Chen Ning felt her eyes blur, and there was an extra light gray figure in the room. That figure bowed down to Mo Chuan. She stared at that person. She had a photographic memory, so she immediately recognized him. Mo Chuan, is he one of your secret guards? That's right, you've seen him before? Mo Chuan was a bit surprised. Zhue Feng's movements were erratic, and he rarely showed himself in front of people. Other than himself and those close to him, there were very few people who had seen his true appearance. Chen Ning said with a faint smile, of course I've seen him. Do you still remember that time in the King Ding Yuan Palace? You sent him to give an imperial edict and sent Xiaobai out of the capital for a long time. When Chu Xiaobai's name was mentioned, her eyes dimmed, and she couldn't help giving a long sigh in her heart. She had been touched by Xiaobai's childish innocence. If it wasn't for Xiaobai suddenly leaving and never coming back, perhaps things would have had a different ending. You did on purpose that time, right? She bit her lips as she looked at him. Mo Chuan's brows jumped up, yes. Chen Ning was a bit stunned. She never thought that he would directly admit it. Why? Could it be that you don't know why I did it? His eyes looked at her with a soft gaze that couldn't be melted. Her face instantly turned red, and she looked down, avoiding his burning gaze. Could it be that he liked her back then? That's why he was jealous of Xiaobai. However, he lifted her chin and continued to look in her eyes. Not only last time, but this time as well. I did it on purpose because I didn't want to see him always staying by your side and looking at you like a silly goose. That brat doesn't have any good intentions towards you. Chen Ning's face turned red, and she couldn't help saying, Xiaobai is very good to me. He has never bullied me before. I think the one with bad intentions is you, and the one bullying me is clearly you. I don't want to drink the medicine, but you forced me to drink it. Thinking that he had used that method to feed her medicine, she was angry and embarrassed. Seeing the blush on her face, he faintly smiled and whispered in her ear, If you don't listen, I will continue to feed you medicine like that. Mo Chuan, I dons. Before she could say anything, he lowered his words, Xiao Ning, Chuan, Chun. Chen Ning to Chun, Chun, Chin Chuck. This was in front of his subordinates. Did he have to go overboard? It wasn't that she didn't want him to kiss her, but she didn't want to be like him, kissing her everywhere and any time. But it was a good thing that he only lightly kissed her and quickly left her lips. He used his finger to touch her red and tender lips and said with a faint smile, "Next time, you're not allowed to say no to me." Chapter 532. Her face became even redder. It was clear that she had understood his meaning as she fiercely glared at him. He reluctantly looked at her face and suppressed the excitement in his chest. Now was not good. It really was not the time to be intimate with her. Even if he was reluctant, he still had to send her out of the palace. After he finished taking care of this matter, he would give a decree to restore her freedom and openly marry her. He believed that day would not be too far away. Que jouer phone. He gave a soft cough and cleared his throat. This subordinate is here. Jouer phone did not raise his head at all. His mind was in a state of chaos. His eyes stared straight at the blue stone floor, almost piercing a hole through the stone surface. Although he didn't raise his head, the sweet words of the emperor and the girl drilled into his ears, making it impossible for him to not listen. Even if he was a fool or a piece of wood, he could still hear the love between the two of them. His heart couldn't help beating fast, and his body was covered in a cold sweat. "Your Majesty, what are you trying to do, The other side's identity is the Ding Yuan princess. Even if you don't care about her identity, shouldn't you care about this subordinate? In front of this subordinate, you are being this intimate with the Ding Yuan princess. Is that really okay? This subordinate is also a person, not an ignorant piece of wood." He had a large secret in his heart that he was prepared to report to the emperor and shock him. He never thought that the emperor would give him an even bigger shock when he came back. How could Mo Chuan know that Zhue Feng's heart was filled with weeds? He held her hand and looked at Zhue Feng. "Zhue Feng, protect her for this one. You have to protect her at all times. If she loses a single hair, this one will hold you responsible. This subordinate will obey the imperial order." Zhue Feng felt like he had been hit by 10,000 points. The emperor was actually sending him to protect her? Just how important was she to him? He was a secret guard trained to protect the emperor since he was young. His martial arts and Qigong were the best, so he was the most trusted and valued by the emperor. But now the emperor was sending him to protect a woman. What would the emperor do? But as a secret guard, he had to obey his master's orders, so he could only agree without any hesitation. "Very good. Now you will escort her to the eldest princess palace. During this period of time, you will stay by her side. If there is any movement, immediately tell this one. Do you understand?" Mo Chuan said in a deep voice. In front of Zhue Feng, his emperor's aura was unknowingly released. His gentleness would only be shown to her. This subordinate will obey. Mo Chuan. Chen Ning shook her head. She wanted to say that she did not need any secret guards, but she saw Maizuri Chuan place a finger on her lips and look at her with a threatening gaze. She immediately understood that if she dared to say no, he would disregard everything and kiss her. All right, she admitted her defeat. Just like this, under Zhue Feng's escort, she safely returned to the eldest princess palace. Zhue Feng was like a shadow that came and went without a trace. Although she knew that Zhue Feng was not far from her, if he did not show himself, she would not be able to see him. He really was worthy of being Mo Chuan's best secret guard. Chen Ning thought that since Mo Chuan arranged for him to protect her, it meant that Zhue Feng was very strong. Chapter 533. If she took off her clothes to sleep or change her clothes, he would be waiting in the dark like a tiger watching its prey. Wouldn't he be able to see everything? Chen Ning felt more uneasy the more she thought about it. She felt that she needed to set some rules with this Zhue Feng. Zhue Feng. She followed the signal that Mo Chuan taught her and gently clapped her hands twice. Sure enough, in the next moment, there was an extra gray figure in front of her. She did not know where he had come from. The doors and windows were all tightly shut, but he still appeared like a gentle breeze. "Princess Consort, Why did you call this subordinate? Zhou Feng bowed to her, but he did not kneel down. Chen Ning did not care. She stared at Zhou Feng. Where were you hiding before? This. Zhou Feng replied in a calm voice. Please forgive this subordinate for not being able to tell you. This was their secret as a shadow guard. How could he reveal it? All right, it's fine if you don't say it, but I want to make an agreement with you. She directly went straight to the point. Agreement? Zhou Feng was stunned. Please explain it to the princess. I don't care where you usually are, but you can't appear when I'm bathing. Also, you can't appear when I'm sleeping. Zhou Feng understood when he heard this. He said in an awkward voice, This. Please forgive this subordinate for not being able to do it. The emperor has ordered me to protect the princess at all times, but the princess can be assured that this subordinate knows when to look and when not to look. I will not cause any trouble for the princess at all. Chen Ning couldn't help feeling angry. This Zhou Feng's words were as smooth as a loach's. His eyes were on his body, so how could she know when he would open or close his eyes? If the princess does not have any other orders, this subordinate will leave first. After he finished, he did not wait for Chen Ning to say anything before disappearing like a gentle breeze. Chen Ning looked at the closed doors and windows. She was sure that Zhou Feng was hiding in her room. The reason why he came and went without a trace was because he was using a magic trick. Even if she knew he was around, she was not confident she could find him. She could only hope that he would keep his word and do what he said. Xiaoru, she called out. Very quickly, Xiaoru opened the door and walked in. Young miss. Xiaoru's round face was blushing, and she was filled with the joy and happiness of youth. Anyone who saw her smiling face would feel refreshed. Chen Ning held her hand with a faint smile and pinched her little apple cheeks. Did you see Xiao Si yesterday? I saw him. The servant talked to Xiao Si for a long time, and he told me many good stories. Xiaoru nodded again and again. At the mention of Xiao Si, her eyes sparkled. Chen Ning saw her innocent smile and couldn't help smiling. She thought about it and then asked, Then do you know Xiao Si's identity? I know. He's just a little eunuch. Xiaoru was still giggling, and her expression did not change at all. Then do you know what eunuchs are? I know. The eunuchs are the people that serve the emperor. Young miss, this servant will tell you a big secret. That Richie Rich. Oh no, bodyguard, hey, he is the current emperor. She moved closer to Chen Ning's ear with a mysterious expression and whispered to her. After saying this, she waited to see Chen Ning's shocked expression. Chapter 534. Young miss, you already knew? Then, why didn't you tell this servant? This servant was waiting for you to be surprised. Xiaoru pouted in disappointment. I wanted to tell you, but I never had the chance. That's right. Did the eldest princess leave the palace? She asked. After coming back, she hadn't seen the eldest princess at all, so she couldn't help feeling that it was strange. With the eldest princess personality, if she was in the palace, the first thing she would do would be to ask her about yesterday's results. Xiaoru nodded and her face filled with excitement. That's right. I heard that the East Qin country sent a large group of envoys to our capital city, so they set up a banquet in the palace. The eldest princess went to the banquet, so it must be a grand scene. It would be great if we could also go take a look. East Qin envoys? Chen Ning wasn't interested in the banquet at all, but she was a bit surprised by the East Qin envoys. She thought of the 2 times she saw Mo Chuan. He always had a faint look of worry on his face. She asked him about it, but he didn't say anything, so it must have something to do with the East Qin envoys. She knew that she didn't understand politics and couldn't help him with the country's matters. All she could do was quietly wait for him to take care of the country's matters and not give him any trouble. Young miss, let's go out and play, all right? I heard that it's very lively outside right now. The market is filled with people selling all kinds of food and toys, as well as singers and jugglers. There's everything. Xiaoru's eyes lit up as she looked at Chen Ning with eyes filled with desire. Chen Ning knew that she was still a child and didn't want to disappoint her, but she didn't know why her heart was beating so fast. So she rubbed her head. You can go play by yourself. I'm very tired and want to sleep for a bit. Then this servant won't go either. This servant will stay here with you. Xiaoru immediately stuck out her tongue and revealed an embarrassed look. Young miss, your body isn't feeling well, but this servant still wants to play. It's all my fault. When I was your age, I also like to go out and play like you. How about you wait for me to sleep for a bit? When I wake up, we can go out and watch jugglers, all right? Chun Ning smiled as she rubbed her hair. All right. Then this servant will stay here and watch over you. Xiaoru smiled and clapped her hands. Sleep with me. Chun Ning smiled and pulled Xiaoru onto the bed with her. She pulled the blanket over them. Only when she thought of Zhui Feng hiding in the corner of the room and this man staring at her like a tiger, she felt uncomfortable all over. She bit her lips and was about to think of a way to send Zhui Feng away when she suddenly heard a sound from the window. Then a gray figure flashed in front of her, and Zhui Feng was already standing by the bed, standing in front of her and Xiaoru. Xiaoru was caught off guard. She suddenly found that there was a man in front of her and instantly screamed out, "Ah, shoo, stop shouting." Zhui Feng immediately turned his hand to cover Xiaoru's mouth. Who would have thought that his back would be facing Xiaoru and he didn't have eyes on the back of his head? Xiaoru moved to Chun Ning's side at this moment, and his palm pressed against Xiaoru's chest. He felt a soft and bouncy feeling, and he couldn't help being stunned. Xiaoru was stunned as her eyes opened wide. Seeing the man's thick palm grab her chest, she was completely scared silly and forgot to dodge it all. Chapter 535. Zhui Feng, why aren't you letting go? She shouted in a low voice as her face sunk. What was wrong with this Zhui Feng? He had accidentally grabbed the wrong place, but he still wouldn't let go. If he said that he wasn't doing this on purpose, no one would believe him. Zhui Feng sobered up and turned around. It was like he'd been burned by fire as he pulled back his hand. His face instantly turned red to his ears. Yes. No, Gugu miss, I didn't do it on purpose. He stuttered. He was very embarrassed and wanted to find a hole to hide in. Wah! Xiaoru finally reacted. Her chest had been touched by a strange man. She felt wronged and sad as she began to loudly cry. She was sobbing and sobbing, her heart broken. Zhui Feng was at a loss as he said in a low voice, You don't cry. I'll apologize to you. I was wrong. Woo. You bad person, you. You compensate me. Xiaoru cried even louder. I'll compensate. After Zhui Feng said this, he was a little stunned. How would he compensate? What would he use to compensate? Woo. My clothes were made by the young miss for 2 silvers, but your hands dirted it. You have to compensate me with 2 silvers. Quickly compensate me. Woo. Xiaoru cried until she couldn't catch her breath. There were 5 black fingerprints on her chest, which made her heart ache just by looking at it. This was the first day she had worn this new dress, and it had been dirted by a man who came out of nowhere. Her heart ached to death. Hearing this, Zhui Feng was stunned. Chun Ning's lips also twitched. The two of them stared at Xiaoru. Chun Ning felt her face burn. How could a smart person like her have such a stupid girl by her side? She really wanted to turn her head and say, I don't know her. Zhui Feng let out a long sigh of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He immediately took out a bag of money from his chest and placed it in Xiaoru's hands. I'll compensate you with all the silver in here. Don't cry. Xiaoru sniffled as she opened the bag of money. She saw small ingots of silver inside. She pulled out a piece of silver and threw the bag of money to Zhui Feng. I only want you to compensate me with the silver for my clothes. I'll give this back to you. No, I did something wrong. I'll give you all these silvers. Zhui Feng's back was soaked in sweat. He had never encountered this kind of embarrassing matter in his life. Just now, he was really afraid that this girl would make him pay for the rest of his life. Fortunately, this girl only wanted money and not him. I don't want it. The young miss said that you can't take ill-gotten gains. Xiaoru said in a righteous manner. No, you have to accept it. Zhui Feng gave the bag of money back to Xiaoru. Don't, why are you so annoying? Who are you? Did you appear here? Xiaoru was impatient. She suddenly stared at Zhue Feng and found that she did not recognize him at all. His clothes were not like the servants of the eldest princess palace. I am. Zhue Feng couldn't help looking at Chen Ning. How? Should he introduce himself? He there. Ku Xiaoru. Chen Ning, who had been watching from the side, pulled Xiaoru over. She rolled her eyes at Zhue Feng and said, he is not a person. Xiaoru and Zhue Feng were stunned. Chapter 536. Zhue Feng's little thoughts could fool Xiaoru, but he couldn't escape her eyes. Although she could see that Zhue Feng did not mean it and did not intend to take advantage of Xiaoru, as a man of this era, shouldn't he have a sense of responsibility? Since he had accidentally touched the wrong place, he should have bravely stood up and accepted the consequences. He should have immediately expressed his attitude and said that he would take responsibility for Xiaoru, right? But this man actually wanted to use a bag of silver to settle this matter. This kind of character, she really didn't like it. Even if he said that he would take responsibility for Xiaoru, she wouldn't agree. It was a good thing that this girl Xiaoru was too young and didn't understand the matters between men and women. She didn't know that she had been taken advantage of by someone, so it wouldn't be good if she revealed this matter. So she just pretended to be confused. Zhue Feng, bring the bag of money over. Also hand over all the silver on you. She coldly looked at Zhue Feng. He was the emperor's secret guard, so he must have quite a bit of savings. He wanted to use a bag of silver to settle Xiaoru. Xiaoru was stupid, but she wasn't. Zhue Feng was stunned for a bit before obediently handing the bag of money over to Chen Ning. He also took out a large amount of silver from his chest, but there was not even a few thousand silvers. Of course, this was not all he had. Chen Ning held the silver and bag of money in her hand and said with a serious expression, "These silver and silver can be considered compensation for offending Xiaoru. Then you can forget everything that happened just now and not mention a single word about it. This matter will be settled like this. Zhue Feng, do you have any dissatisfaction with me handling this matter like this?" Zhue Feng secretly thought that the princess consort was very powerful. He quickly nodded. This subordinate will listen to the princess consort's decision. I do not have any dissatisfaction at all. He even secretly let out a sigh of relief. Very good. Xiaoru, take this silver and silver. This will be your dowry in the future. This is not some ill-gotten gains. It is something that he is willing to compensate you with, so you can just accept it. Chen Ning pulled Xiaoru's hand and gave the bag of money and silver to her. Xiaoru's eyes went wide as she looked at the things in her hand. She simply could not believe that she had suddenly obtained several thousand silvers. God, was she dreaming? Zhue Feng, you can leave. There's nothing else here. Chen Ning did not have a good impression of Zhue Feng. She thought that a hidden guard really was a hidden guard. Hiding in the dark all day, his heart had also become dark. Zhue Feng did not move. He looked out the window and said in a deep voice, "There's someone outside." He had jumped out of his hiding place when he heard the commotion outside the window. "There's someone." Chen Ning looked out the window and thought that Chu Xiaoyang wouldn't have come, right? Thinking of Chu Xiaoyang, she felt a dull pain in her chest and couldn't help frowning. Why did her chest feel this pain when she thought of thought? Why did her chest feel so tight whenever she thought of him? And twice in a row, she fainted for no reason. It's a martial arts expert, Zhue Feng replied. He slowly walked over to the window step by step, holding his breath as he prepared himself. The window suddenly of Feng Feng and Qing Ling Chun Feng Xiao Feng. The window opened at Feng Xiao Feng Feng of Ru of Feng of ZT Xiao. Chen Ning hugged her and stared at the window without blinking. It was broad daylight. She did not believe that there would be any ghosts. The window finally opened and flowers bloomed outside. In the middle of the flowers, there was a white as snow clothed young man with a frosty appearance. He was currently smiling at her. Chapter 537. Xiao Bai, so it's you. Chen Ning let out a soft sigh and also revealed a sweet smile to the white-clothed youth. Greetings, King Jing. And when Zhui Feng saw Chu Xiaobai, he did not seem surprised at all, but his expression was a bit awkward. Zhui Feng, why are you here? Chu Xiaobai's eyes fell onto Zhui Feng. He rolled his eyes and said with a smile, I understand. It must be the Emperor who sent you to protect her, right? Uncle Emperor is really good to me. Before I left the capital, I asked him to help me protect Ning Er's safety. He really kept his word. You just returned to the capital, and he immediately sent you over. When I see the Emperor, I must properly thank him. He turned to look at Chen Ning and said with a smile, Seeing that you're safe, I'm relieved. Zhui Feng lowered his head in silence. He did not know how to reply. He now understood everything that had happened. AI, this King Jing, and was still kept in the dark by his master. If he knew the truth, wouldn't he go all out against his master? Zhui Feng, now that I'm here, I'll be responsible for her safety. You can return to the Emperor's side. Chu Xiaobai said, This subordinate is following the Emperor's orders. The Emperor ordered this subordinate to protect the princess consort. So this subordinate does not dare disobey master's orders. What do you mean? Do you think this king will harm her? Chu Xiaobai raised his brows, and a trace of anger flashed in his eyes. This subordinate does not dare. Zhui Feng bowed. Then leave. This king has something to say to Ning Er. Chu Xiaobai impatiently stared at him. This? Zhui Feng hesitated a bit. I ask King Jing for forgiveness. This subordinate's duty is to not leave the princess consort's side. You don't even listen to this king's words? Zhui Feng bowed and said, Please forgive me, King Jing. This subordinate only has one master. In other words, he only listened to Mo Chuan's orders. Chu Xiaobai did not get angry and instead revealed a smile. All right, this king won't make it hard for you. You are loyal to the Emperor. This king is very pleased. He smiled as he jumped through the window. He walked beside Zhui Feng and patted his shoulder. With a smile, he said, Zhui Feng, next time you have time, this king will invite you for a drink. This subordinate. Zhui Feng's voice suddenly stopped. He maintained his bowed posture without moving, but his eyes were wide open as he stared at Chu Xiaobai in front of him. Humph, you want to fight with this king? You better be more obedient next time. But there won't be a next time. Chu Xiaobai laughed as he withdrew his finger from Zhui Feng's acupuncture point. He placed him under the bed and then revealed a faint smile to Xiao Ru. I want to have a few words with your master and you. Can's Xiao, can sleep. You. Xiao out. And in Xiao out of sleep, she fell out. Ling. Xiao Bai. Xiao out of Xiao out. Xiao Bai, you're not allowed to smile at my maid like this in the future. This girl's eyes are too shallow. If you manage to move her heart, I'll marry her to you. Chen Ning angrily looked at Chu Xiaobai. She pulled over the blanket and covered Xiao Ru with it before walking off the bed. Ning Er, I was wrong. I won't smile at her in the future. I'll only smile at you, all right? Chu Xiaobai said in a soft voice as he looked at her without blinking. After not seeing her for a few days, she seemed to have become even more beautiful. Chapter 538. Xiaobai, did you come to see me as soon as you came back? Why aren't you resting? Since I'm here, I won't run away. Look, your eyes are completely red. Chen Ning noticed that although he was still as elegant as before, there was a weathered look on his face. Especially his eyes, they were completely red. When he came back last time, he also had a pair of rabbit eyes like this. She couldn't help feeling a bit of guilt. If it wasn't for her, he wouldn't have been running around outside and not having a good rest. Ning Er, are you worried about me? His eyes instantly lit up and he wanted to pull her hand. Chen Ning took a step back and said with a faint smile, Yes, now that you've seen me, I'm fine. If you don't want me to worry, you should go back and sleep. If you have anything to say, we'll talk about it when you wake up. She blushed under his burning gaze. She was thinking in her heart, should she tell him about her and Mo Chuan's matter? But when she saw his face that was as pure as water, as well as those clean and limpid eyes, she couldn't open her mouth no matter what. The only thing she could do now was was to keep her distance from him. Ning, I have something to give you. Chu Xiaobai did not notice her distance at all. He excitedly took out a long brocade box from his chest and placed it in front of her like he was presenting a treasure. What is this? She said with a smile. If it's very expensive, I won't accept it. It's just a worthless little thing. You definitely won't like it. I'll just throw it away. He shook his head in a dejected manner. He raised his hand and prepared to throw it out the window. Wait, let me see what it is. She grabbed his hand and took the brocade box from his hand, opening it. The brocade box looked beautiful on the outside, but there was a long and thin piece of wood inside. It couldn't be called wood. One end was thin and the other was carved into the shape of a flower. This is a wooden hairpin? She picked it up and looked at it. She saw that the carving was simple and the hairpin was not smooth enough. No matter how she thought about it, she could not imagine that Xiao Bai would actually give her such an unremarkable thing. Did you make this yourself? She was smart and immediately guessed it. She looked at him with a smile. Yes, this is my first time learning how to do it. Isn't it ugly? If you don't like it, you could just throw it away. His handsome face was slightly red as he looked at her nervously, his fingers clenched. Even though he sounded nonchalant, if she really threw it away, he would still be very disappointed and sad. However, he would definitely not let her see it. Next time, he would make a more beautiful and exquisite one for her. But this time, he really didn't have time. Who said it's ugly? Whoever said that the hairpin was ugly must be blind. I think it's very beautiful, and I like it a lot. Xiaobai, thank you. I'll accept this gift. She placed the hairpin on her head and asked him with a smile, Does it look good? Although he didn't say it, she could see his facial expressions. How could she not know what he was thinking? How could she let a boy who craved praise be disappointed with his first work? Chu Xiaobai's eyes lit up and his beautiful black eyes sparkled. Beautiful, very beautiful. She accepted it. She accepted the hairpin carved by him and wore it on her head. Chapter 539. Ning, I'm really very happy. He suddenly grabbed her hand and revealed a bright smile to her. His palm was burning hot and the glow in his eyes was even more intense. Shen Ning suddenly felt that something was wrong. She had just accepted his gift. Did he need to be this excited? Xiaobai, I heard that the East Qin envoys came to our capital city today and the royal palace is holding a banquet. Why didn't you attend? I think the palace must be very lively. You are King Jing and wouldn't it be bad if you didn't attend? She changed the topic and pulled her hand out of his grasp without a trace. It's very lively, but I don't like it. I like being here with you. He looked in her eyes and said. The uneasiness in her heart increased. She wanted to pull back her hand, but he forcefully held it. Ning, do you like lively? There are many fun things on the streets right now, many of which I have never seen before. Let's go take a look, all right? Her heart skipped a beat. She felt that his idea wasn't bad. All right. She nodded and turned to look at Xiao Ru on the bed. Bring Xiao Ru with you. She likes lively things. No, just let her have a good sleep here, Wang Yao said. Chu Xiaobai immediately shook his head. He did not wait for her to say anything else as he jumped out the window. They avoided the eyes and ears of the palace's guards, jumping over 2 walls and leaving the eldest princess palace. Coming to the crowded streets, Chen Ning found that she had underestimated the prosperity of the capital city. It was indeed very lively here. There were all kinds of things to eat, play, and have fun. It seemed that every family had rushed to the streets on this day. She was quickly separated from Chu Xiaobai by the crowd, but very quickly he squeezed through the crowd and used his hand to protect her, not letting the crowd touch her again. I'm sorry, sir. I never thought there would be this many people here. If I knew earlier, I wouldn't have suggested coming here to watch the fun. He was a little angry and a little regretful as he kept looking at the people beside him. This was because he found that more and more people were not going to watch the fun, but were instead looking at the two of them. They had unknowingly become the focus of everyone's attention. Originally, the two of them had outstanding looks. One was a white-clothed handsome youth, and the other was a beautiful young girl. Standing in the middle of the crowd, They were like cranes among chickens. It was a pleasing scene, and it was impossible for them not to attract attention, especially the street thugs. They surrounded Chun Ning with their eyes rolling around. They had malicious smiles on their faces as they tried to strike up a conversation with her. "Little girl, is the one beside you your little lover? Look at his weak body. Does he want to be a flower protector? Why don't you come with us? We'll make sure you're happy." A ruffian stared at Chun Ning. The more he looked, the more he liked her. He even dared to come up and pull her hand. When the thugs saw this, they began to cheer as well. They were very familiar with this street and were known as the street tyrants. Taking liberties with innocent women was a common thing for them. Normal people did not dare provoke them and would take a detour when they saw them. When the citizens saw this, they did not dare say anything. They secretly felt sorry for Chun Ning in their hearts. If this kind of flower like little girl was taken in by these thugs, she would die prematurely. Chapter 540. Akacha's sound rang out. That ruffian's hand had not even touched Chun Ning when he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his wrist. He looked down and immediately cried out, "My wrist! My hand is broken. It's broken. It hurts." He hugged his arm and cried out in pain, not understanding how his wrist had suddenly been broken. There were many people on the side who could clearly see that the white-clothed, beautiful youth had stretched out a finger and gently tapped that ruffian's wrist, breaking that ruffian's wrist. See, the surrounding people all took in a cold breath. Everyone looked at Chu Xiaobai with shocked eyes. This beautiful youth was very strong. If you dare have any ideas about her, you'll end up like this fellow. All of you scram. Chu Xiaobai's face was as cold as ice, and his voice was cold. His eyes swept over the crowd of ruffians, making everyone feel a chill. This is bad. They had met a hard nut today. These two people could not be provoked. The ruffians quickly held the ruffian who had his wrist broken and ran into the crowd, disappearing without a single one of them. Chu Xiaobai's face was still not very good. He never thought that there would be people this bold, taking liberties with his beloved girl in broad daylight. If it wasn't for the fact that he didn't want this matter to become big, he would have broken all of their legs. He had wanted to bring her to watch the fun, but how could he be in the mood to watch the fun? He knew that if this continued, they would become the fun and everyone would come see them. He used his arm to protect her shoulder and quickly brought her away from the crowd, going wherever there were fewer people. Very quickly, they left the crowd and came to a quiet and sparsely populated alley. "Xiaobai, didn't want to watch the fun? Why did you bring me here?" Chun Ning looked left and right. The alley was very deep, and there was not a single person in sight. It was like a completely different world compared to the bustling street from before. Chu Xiaobai waved his sleeve, but his anger had not disappeared. Thinking of the fiery gazes everyone had on her, he wished he could cover her from head to toe with a hood, not letting anyone see her. He felt like his brain had gone crazy. He actually brought her out to go shopping, making him filled with anger. There are too many people there, and it's too chaotic. There's nothing fun to see. He suddenly grabbed her hand and ran out of the alley. "I thought a good place. It's quiet and has a beautiful scenery. I'll take you there." He pulled her to the entrance of the alley and saw a carriage parked there. There was no one in the carriage, and the horse was tied to a tree. It seemed like the people in the carriage had gone to watch the fun. He did not say a word as he untied the horse's reins and pulled her onto the carriage. He sat in the carriage and sat in the carriage. "Xiaobai, this carriage has an owner. I never thought that the respected King Jing and would steal a carriage." Chun Ning pursed her lips and said with a smile, "You're right, I won't steal it." Chu Xiaobai nodded with a smile. He threw out a piece of silver that landed under the tree before whipping away. "Hey, what if this silver is picked up by someone else? Wouldn't the owner have lost his car for nothing? That has nothing to do with me. I'll give you the silver, and I'll drive the carriage away. This doesn't count as stealing, don't you think?" He looked back at her with a smile. Then he drove the carriage forward. Very quickly, the carriage left the capital and arrived at the outskirts. Chapter 541. Ning came out of the carriage and hugged her knees as she sat beside Chu Xiaobai. She breathed in the fresh air and enjoyed the scenery on both sides. The two of them did not say a word. There was only the crisp sound of the whip and the sound of the horse's hooves. But the atmosphere was very peaceful and harmonious. The carriage became more and more remote as it left the main road. It entered a muddy path filled with thorns and slowed down. Xiaobai, where are you taking me? How long will it take to get there? Ning looked up at the sky. The sun was already slowly moving to the west, and they were already very far from the city. If this continued, they wouldn't be able to return to the city before it was dark. We're almost there. When you see it, you'll definitely like it. Chu Xiaobai drove the carriage and turned into a valley. In the valley, there was a fiery red glow. There were also white clouds that floated in the middle of the red glow. Ning's eyes lit up as she was pleasantly surprised. This was a very, very large valley. It was surrounded on all sides by green mountains, and there were flowers and trees all over the mountains. Peach blossoms, apricot blossoms, and pear blossoms. Red like fire, pink like clouds, and white like snow, it was too beautiful to behold. She unknowingly held her breath as she was amazed by the natural beauty in front of her. The carriage stopped, and he pulled her into the sea of flowers, passing by a pear blossom tree. These pear blossoms were very beautiful. As the wind blew, the snow-white petals fell like rain onto her hair, forehead, and shoulders. Do you like it here? He looked at her with a faint smile. Ever since they entered the valley, his eyes had not left her for a second. She was looking at the beautiful scenery, and he was looking at her. In his eyes, there was no scenery more beautiful than her in this world. I like it. She sincerely nodded. I know you'll like it. When I accidentally came here, I was just as excited and happy as you were. At that time, the first person I thought of was you. I think you'll definitely fall in love with this place, just like me. He stood under a peach blossom tree and revealed a faint smile to her. His white clothes were like frost, and the peach blossoms were like a dazzling flower. Ning suddenly thought of a poem. The peach blossoms on a person's face are red. Although the peach blossoms were beautiful, how could they compare to his dazzling appearance? He found a flat patch of grass and pulled her to sit down. Then, as if he was performing a magic trick, he took out a bottle of wine and a roasted chicken. Where did you get this wine and chicken? She was hungry, so she was pleasantly surprised. Not only wine and chicken, there is even more delicious food. He smiled and took out a bundle from behind him. Inside were several exquisite desserts and fresh fruits. Xiaobai, do you know how to do magic? I found it in the carriage. Maybe the owner of the carriage forgot to take it with him. It's a good thing for us. He smiled as he spread the food and drinks on the ground, then tore off a chicken leg and handed it to her. She took a bite of the drumstick, and he handed the wine to her and said with a smile, "This is the best new Hong. It is very soft. Even if you drink a bottle, you won't get drunk." She blushed slightly. She knew that he was laughing at her for getting drunk the last time she took a sip. I don't. She shook her head. Mo Chuan had said that she could only drink when she was with him. She didn't know what kind of incredible things she would do when she was drunk, so it was best if she didn't drink. Chapter 542. A faint fruity fragrance floated in her nose, and she suddenly felt a bit thirsty. She thought that if she drank a mouthful, she wouldn't get drunk, right? She was still a bit worried as she asked Chu Xiaobai, "Is this wine really very light?" He smiled. "Are you worried I'll get drunk?" "Don't worry. Even if you're drunk, I'll send you back safely." "Then let me try a mouthful." "All right." He gave the wine bottle to her. She carefully tasted a small mouthful. It was very sweet and did not have the taste of alcohol at all. She was assured and drank another mouthful, but she did not dare drink too much and only took a small taste. Quickly filling her stomach, she leaned against a flower tree and closed her eyes to rest. The entire valley was silent, so silent that she could hear the sound of petals falling to the ground. Her heart also became calm. This place was like a paradise, far away from the worries of the world. If she and Mo Chuan could be like this, stealing half a day of leisure, it would be a very pleasant matter. AI. It's a pity that Mo Chuan could not do it. As the emperor, he had many important matters to take care of. So how could he have the time? Ning with her eyes closed, she heard Chu Xiao Bai's soft voice in her ears. Being with me today, are you happy? Yes. Then, do you want to be happy like this every day? He stared at her and held his breath. Of course I do. She almost blurted it out. Opening her eyes, she saw Chu Xiao Bai's eyes filled with anticipation. She shook her head. Xiao Bai, life is not just simple happiness. There should be many worries and worries. Of course I want to be happy like this for a lifetime, but I can't do it. She had already decided to be with Mo Chuan. She had to share Mo Chuan's burden and responsibilities as well as his worries. Why can't you do it? As long as you want it, I can do it. I will make you happy like this every day. You like it here, don't you? You like being free and unrestrained, don't you? I've said it before. I will take you away. As long as you are willing to go with me, I will take you to the most beautiful place in the world to see the scenery, the sunrise, the sunset, and the tide. Ning don't say you don't like it. You can't hide it from me. He tightly held her hands and spoke in an excited voice. It was undeniable that his description was very beautiful, and every word was enough to move her. That was indeed what she liked, and also what she wanted. She wanted to travel the world and see the most beautiful scenery. But it was not with him. She stared into his clear eyes and could not bear to say anything that would make him sad. She only smiled and said, Xiao Bai, it's getting late. Let's go back. The light in his eyes dimmed for a moment. Then he smiled and said, All right, wait for me. The peach blossoms over there are so beautiful. I'll go pluck one for you to wear. She smiled and nodded, watching as his white robes fluttered in the wind. With a few leaps, he leaped up a cliff and began to climb the peach blossoms by the cliff. This Xiao Bai was really strange. There were clearly peach blossom trees nearby, but he wanted to pick the flowers on the cliff. She looked away with a faint smile and reluctantly looked around at the blossoming trees. The wind blew and the fragrant snow covered the ground. It would be great if she could come here with Mo Chuan one day. Ning She heard Chu Xiao Bai's voice calling her from behind. She turned around with a smile. A shining dagger was stabbed into her chest. Chapter 543. The tip of the sword was incomparably sharp, bringing with it a bone-chilling chill and a slight pain. She gently lowered her eyes and looked at the dagger that was stuck in her chest. Her gaze slowly moved and landed on the slender and beautiful fingers that held the dagger. It was Chu Xiao Bai's hand. She slowly raised her eyes and looked at Chu Xiao Bai across from her. He was still wearing a snow-white robe, and his elegant face was incomparably handsome, without a speck of dust on it. But the dagger in his hand was covered in blood. Xiao Bai, it was the Empress Dowager who sent you to kill me, right? She looked up and revealed a faint smile at him, looking very beautiful. Yes. Chu Xiao Bai was also smiling, but his eyes revealed a look of pain. His hand was slightly trembling. I already guessed it would be like this, and I've been waiting for this moment. I was just curious why you waited until now to make a move. She continued to speak with a faint smile. Her voice was soft, and her eyes were calm, without any fear. His hand trembled even more. Since you already guessed it, why did you come out with me? Because I wanted to know if you would make a move against me. She calmly said, Why aren't you afraid? Why aren't you screaming? Why aren't you crying for me to let you go? The smile on his face disappeared, and he asked in a trembling voice, Why didn't you forcefully stab me? Why does your dagger only have short sword tip? You know that you can't kill me like this. She did not answer and asked back, but the smile on her face did not diminish. Chu Xiao Bai forcefully gritted his teeth. He suddenly threw the dagger in his hand and hugged her. He painfully said, You know that I can't do it. His body was trembling like a lost child. Chen Ning stroked his hair and gently said, Xiao Bai, just kill me. I know that you have always been filial to the Empress Dowager, and you have never disobeyed her orders. Dying under your hands is better than dying under someone else's hands. She picked up the dagger on the ground and placed it in his hand. No, I won't kill you. You know that I would rather kill myself than kill you. He threw the dagger far away. If you don't kill me, how will you report to the Empress Dowager? She gently asked. Chu Xiaobai gritted his teeth. He looked up, and his eyes filled with determination. Ninger, I will take you far away from the capital city, far away from West Chu. I will never take a single step into West Chu in my life. I don't know why royal grandmother can't tolerate you, but I won't let you die. I won't let. He bent down and picked her up, then walked toward the carriage. Ninger, I've already arranged everything. I've already prepared this carriage. The road pass, jewelry, silver bills, clothes, and medicine are all on the carriage. We'll change our clothes and disguise ourselves, so no one will recognize us. In less than a month, we can safely leave West Chu. The world is big, and we can roam freely. Xiao, Chun Ning struggled in his chest. Xiao of me. Of Chun Ling. Her, Chun that you Ling. She would rather die than leave. She didn't want to leave Mo Chuan. However, her struggles were getting weaker and weaker. Her hands and feet were getting softer and softer. Stars danced in front of her as if the entire valley was flying in front of her eyes. Chapter 544. Chu Xiaobai's footsteps did not stop at all as he carried her all the way to the carriage. He had specially prepared a soft couch for her that was very thick and soft. He put her down on the couch and covered her with a brocade quilt. Then he carefully tidied up the hair on her temples. She bit her lips hard to maintain a trace of consciousness and didn't let herself fall asleep. What medicine did you give me? She asked him with wide eyes. She clearly used all her strength, but it sounded like a whisper, very weak. He gently looked at her, and his clear smile was as gentle and harmless as before. It's just a little medicine to help you sleep. It won't harm your body at all. You just need to have a good sleep and leave everything else to me. Ninger, I never thought of harming you. He lowered his head and gently kissed her forehead. Chen Ning did not even finish listening to him before she lost consciousness. Chu Xiaobai checked her breathing. Her breathing was calm and her pulse was normal. He knew that the medicine had taken effect and relaxed his heart. He took out a bag from under the carriage seat and opened it. There were several sets of coarse clothes inside. He quickly took off his white clothes and changed into the coarse clothes. Then he took out a disguising pill and applied it to his face. A moment later, that spotless and beautiful youth in snow-white clothes had turned into a carriage driver with a sallow complexion and coarse clothes. He believed that even if Chun Ning woke up, she wouldn't be able to recognize him. He gave a satisfied smile and jumped onto the carriage, driving it out of the valley. He had to leave this place before the sky darkened. He had to take her as far away as possible before the Emperor and the Empress Dowager sent people over. Only when the carriage left the valley, he saw a gray figure appear on the road in front of him, and his heart sank. That gray figure was not a bystander. It was Zhue Feng. Damn, didn't he poke this fellow's acupuncture point? Why would he appear here? Chu Xiaoyang looked down and forcefully swung the horsewhip. In a rough voice, he said, "Excuse me." Zhue Feng looked over him a few times before moving to the side. Very good. This fellow really did not recognize him. Chu Xiaobai was very confident in his disguising skills. He drove the carriage and passed by Zhue Feng. He deliberately pretended to be clumsy, like a country bumpkin that did not know martial arts. At the same time, he was secretly glad that he had spent a lot of effort on this carriage. It looked like a normal carriage from the outside, but the inside was different. The carriage left the mountain road and returned to the official road. Chu Xiaobai finally looked back and did not see Zhue Feng's figure. He couldn't help letting out a sigh of relief and revealing a faint smile on his face. He turned back and raised his whip to slap the horse's butt. Then he smiled and said to himself, "Zhue Feng, Zhue Feng, Zhue Feng, you are unparalleled in the world, but didn't you fall for my trick?" Thinking that he had fooling Zhue Feng's eyes, his heart filled with pride. "Your Highness King Jing'an, aren't you looking down on this subordinate too much? A faint voice filled with ridicule came from behind him. Chu Zhuwei. He Zhe Yang's hand holding not. Chu's hand. Zhuwei Feng was sitting on the roof of the carriage with his legs dangling in front of the door. His black leather boots were covered in mud as he swayed back and forth. When did this fellow get on the carriage? He actually did not notice it at all. This way, she won't die in pain. Chu Xiaobai softly said. But Zhuwei Feng could hear that his calm voice contained a lot of pain. He looked at Chu Xiaobai with a look of sympathy. Wind, she doesn't need your protection now, so you should go. Chu Xiaobai suddenly looked up, and his pair of red eyes coldly looked at Zhuwei Feng. Yes, Zhuwei Feng said in a low voice. He turned around and took 2 steps, but he couldn't help turning back. Your Highness, what about you? Aren't you going back to the capital? The princess has already. You should let her rest in peace. Chapter 546. This king promised her that I would take her to see the beautiful scenery of the world. Now, no one can stop me, and no one can take her away from me. I will stay by her side and always be by her side. His voice gradually became lower, and 2 large teardrops fell from his chin, rolling down his clothes and falling into the dust. Zhuwei Feng's heart was filled with bitterness, not knowing what this feeling was. He looked at Chu Xiaobai's idiotic eyes staring at her and felt like he was an extra person here. With a low sigh, he walked out of the carriage and jumped off. When he was prepared to leave, he suddenly heard Chu Xiaobai call him. Zhuwei Feng. He stopped and turned around. A round thing fell into his chest, and when he looked at it, he found it was an egg. You've chased me all the way, so you must be hungry. Take it with you on the road. Chu Xiaobai's voice came from the carriage. There was a trace of sobbing in his voice. Zhuwei Feng's heart warmed up, and he was very moved. Many thanks, Your Highness. There's another one here. I'll give it to you as well. Another round egg was tossed into his arms. Zhuwei Feng was filled with gratitude. Your Highness, this subordinate. Quickly leave. This king does not want anyone to disturb her peace. The further you go, the better. Zhuwei Feng did not dare stay any longer. He placed the 2 eggs into his chest and used his qin gong to fly in the direction of the capital city. His heart was incomparably heavy. He had not completed the task his master had given him and had personally witnessed such a moving scene. He never would have thought that the always calm King Jing and would be such an emotional person. He actually wanted to take his princess body to travel the world and see all the beautiful sceneries. But the princess was already dead. What could she see? Wasn't King Jing crazy? Too moved. But what made him even more moved was that his highness was this sad, thinking that he had not eaten yet. He had given him 2 hot eggs. Zhuwei Feng reached into his chest and touched the 2 eggs. They were warm and filled his heart with warmth. His heart suddenly filled with guilt. His highness treated him this well, but he had left traces of his highness on the road. Should he erase all these traces? He was hesitating when he suddenly felt the eggs in his hands become hot, and they became hotter and hotter. What was going on? He couldn't help bringing the hot eggs to his eyes and carefully looking at them. Pung! Although the sound of the explosion came from far away, Chu Xiaobai could still hear it. I wanted to use it to blow up that brat He, but I never thought that brat Zhuwei Feng would come to me. Originally, I wanted to use it to blast that brat He, but I didn't expect that brat Zhuwei Feng to take the initiative to deliver it to me. If I don't let him have a taste of this thunderbolt egg, it would be too unfair to him. He turned around and helped Shen Ning put her hair that had been messed up by the wind to the back of her head. Then he took out the dagger that was stuck in her chest and pulled up the blanket for her. This extended and retracted dagger is really good at scaring people. Fortunately, I was prepared in advance, so I was able to fool that kid Windchaser. I think he must have been blown up beyond recognition, with only skin and hair left, right? Hey, wanted to fight with me? Chu Xiaobai, this brat is still too tender. He came out of the carriage and picked up the horsewhip again. He quickly drove the carriage away. Chapter 547. His face was covered in ash, and his hair was curled up, standing up straight. There were several large holes in his clothes, revealing his skin. His eyes were red and tears kept falling down. Chu Xiaobai, you're truly ruthless. Zhue Feng gritted his teeth as he looked at the empty road. Although the 2 thunderbolt eggs did not injure him, his eyes had been burned by the gunpowder. His vision became blurry and he could no longer follow. He was in a dilemma. He did not know if he should return to the palace to report to his master or wait for his eyes to recover before continuing to follow. At the same time, there was a doubt in his heart. Was the princess consort dead or alive? When Chen Ning opened her eyes again, she found that she was in a strange place. The lamp in front of her was as small as a bean. The light was dim, and there was a tattered curtain hanging over her head. The bed she was lying on was also cold and hard, making her back ache from the cold. Her lips curled into a bitter smile. When did she become this weak? She was not used to sleeping on a hard bed. She wanted to sit up, but she found that her arms and legs were stiff. She couldn't even move her pinky. What happened to her? Her head was still a bit dizzy, but she remembered what happened before she fainted. It was Xiaobai. He had drugged her. Damn, what did he bring her? Chu Xiaobai. Chu Xiaobai. She opened her mouth and forcefully shouted out. However, her tongue was also stiff. Even though she was using a lot of strength, she could only produce an indistinct murmur. In the next moment, she heard the door open with a yes sound. She wanted to turn her head, but she found that she couldn't even move her neck. She could only turn her eyes and look in the direction of the sound. A waxy yellow expressionless face entered her line of sight. It was an unfamiliar man wearing rough clothes, and he was very tall. He carefully carried a large, steaming bowl, which exuded a tempting aroma of food. As soon as she smelled the aroma, her stomach couldn't help but growl. Hearing her stomach growl, he turned to look at her, and a look of joy flashed in his eyes. He placed the bowl in his hand on the table and quickly ran over to her. You're awake? He laid the palm of his hand on her forehead, touched her face, and his voice was full of joy. Then he drew her up and held her close to him. Chen Ning's head was pressed against his shoulder, and her eyes were filled with confusion. She was clearly with Chu Xiaobai. So where did this man come from? That's right, she was dreaming. She had to be dreaming. If it wasn't a dream, then she had to be transmigrating again. It was just that she didn't know where she had transmigrated to this time, and what was the relationship between her current body and this strange man. She didn't know what she was thinking. That man released her and revealed a gentle smile to her as he asked, Ning-er, are you hungry? I prepared something for you, but I'm not sure if you'll like it. Ning. She blinked her eyes. The body that she had transmigrated into was also called Ning-er. Who are you? She moved her lips and spat out a few indistinct words. The man looked at her, and an apologetic look flashed in his eyes. He stroked her face and said, I'm sorry. I forgot that the drug on you hasn't passed yet. You can't speak or move for now, but it doesn't matter. I'll feed you. Chen Ning found that although his face was unfamiliar, his eyes and voice were very familiar. She blinked her eyes and immediately recognized it. Chapter 548. Bastard Xiaobai, what did you do to me? What kind of drug did you give me? When will I be able to move? Where did you bring me? She opened her mouth and began to whimper. She wanted to question him, but she couldn't even hear the words that came out. Her eyes were wide open, looking at Chu Xiaobai like an angry little beast. He smiled and misunderstood her meaning. But are you hungry? Look at how wide your eyes are. All right, I'll feed you now. He helped her lean against the headboard and stuffed a pillow behind her. Then he picked up the bowl and sat in front of the bed. It was a bowl of the most common noodle leaf soup. There were a few green onions sprinkled on it. Although it was simple, it was fragrant. This kind of food that she hadn't eaten in a long time made her stomach growl. Her face turned a little red, and she felt very embarrassed. Chu Xiaobai resisted the urge to tease her. He scooped up a spoonful of noodles and placed it in front of her lips. Eat, he said in a soft voice. She forcefully closed her lips and looked to the side. Not eating. She wouldn't eat even if she starved to death. He had taken her away against her wishes, so she wouldn't eat his food no matter what. The smile on Chu Xiaobai's lips slowly became wider. This was the first time he had seen this kind of childish expression on her face, and it was indescribably cute. It made him want to tease her even more. He used the spoon to gently wipe her lips a few times and looked at her with a faint smile as he said, "If you don't open your mouth, I'll feed you mouth to mouth." He deliberately moved closer to her, scaring her. Her heart suddenly skipped a beat, and her face turned completely red. She immediately turned around to stare at him. "You dare!" She used her eyes to warn him. He immediately understood and said with a smile, "If you don't want to eat, I'll use this method to feed you. Do you think I dare?" He pretended to drink the noodle soup in his bowl. "All right," she admitted defeat. He really was a member of the Chu family. When he acted like a rascal, he was just like Mo Chuan. They were both rascals to the extreme. Chun Ning gritted her teeth and could only open her mouth to drink a spoonful of noodles. That warm and fragrant noodle slid into her stomach, and she felt an indescribable comfort. "Is it good?" His eyes revealed a look of joy. "Umph." Chun Ning closed her eyes and ignored him. Chu Xiaobai revealed a smile. He was not angry at all as he continued to feed her. It was just that he was used to being a prince. His daily life was always taken care of by others. So how could he serve others? After feeding her a few spoonfuls, he accidentally scooped too much. His wrist trembled and some of the broth spilled onto her body. I'm sorry. He was afraid that he would burn her, so he quickly wiped it away. She didn't know that he was in a panic, which made it easier for him to make mistakes. The bowl of soup in his hand tilted, and more than half of the soup spilled onto her lapel. He did not know what to do. Fortunately, the bowl of noodle soup wasn't too hot and didn't burn her. It was just that the wet and sticky noodle soup stuck to her body, making her very uncomfortable. Chin of tu xiao chin of chun. I'll help you dry it immediately. Chu Xiaobai's forehead was covered in sweat as he used his sleeves to wipe the broth off her body. After wiping a few times, he felt that something was wrong. His face instantly turned red to the back of his ears, and his heart began to beat very fast. Chapter 549. You're not allowed to look. If you keep looking, I'll dig out your eyes. Chen Ning's face was also completely red. Of course she knew what Chu Xiaobai was looking at. She was angry and embarrassed as she stared at him. It was a pity that Chu Xiaobai couldn't see it. His breathing became faster and faster. His palms became hot and his throat became dry. Chu Xiaobai. She used almost all the strength in her body before she finally opened her mouth and spat out 3 words filled with anger. Chu Xiaobai's body trembled, and he instantly came back to his senses from his thoughts. His face was red as he forcefully closed his eyes and anxiously said, I won't look. I really won't look. Don't be angry. Actually, I didn't see anything. Blanket, cover me. Chen Ning forcefully spat out a few more words. Chu Xiaobai understood. He immediately pulled the blanket over and covered her body with it. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief and open his eyes. His face was very red and his heart was still beating fast. He lowered his head, not daring to look at her face. Chen Ning's face slowly calmed down. After all, she came from the modern era and did not care about the customs of the ancient women. For example, if a man that wasn't her husband touched her hand, she would have to chop it off. If a man saw her body, she would have to marry him. Antidote. She coldly said these 2 words. Chu Xiaobai looked up. His clear eyes were like a deer's, filled with innocence and apology. Ninger, I will take responsibility for you. Don't be angry, all right? Responsibility. Taking responsibility again. He didn't do anything to her. What responsibility was there to take? Chen Ning couldn't help rolling her eyes at him. These ancient men, they would take responsibility when they met a girl they liked. If he didn't like her, it would be strange if he took responsibility. Antidote. She said again. There is no antidote. Chu Xiaobai looked a bit hesitant. Seeing her angry eyes staring at him, he quickly explained, What I gave you is not poison, It will just make your body temporarily stiff. You will naturally recover after a while. Otherwise, how could you fool that fellow Jouet phone? His eyes are very sharp. He must think that you're dead right now. He will quickly bring this news back to the palace and make the Empress Dowager believe it. Ninger, don't worry, you can't move right now. You just need to sleep a bit more, and you'll be able to move when you wake up. He slowly helped her lie down. Thinking of her wet clothes, he knew that she must be feeling very uncomfortable, so he said in a soft voice, I'll help you change your clothes. All right? I won't open my eyes. I'll close my eyes and help you change. I'll help you change. Don't worry. I can't look at you. Her ears buzzed, and her mind was filled with the words Chu Xiaobai had just said. He had fed himself the fake death medicine to trick Jouet Feng, making Jouet Feng think he was dead. Then he sent the news to the royal palace, making Empress Dowager Zhou believe he was dead. Mo, Chun, Mo, Tu. He would give her the medicine to fake her death and trick Jouet Feng, making him think she was dead. Then he would send the news to the palace and make Empress Dowager Zhou believe she was dead. Chen Ning did not dare think about what Mo Chuan would do once he learned of this. Chen Ning did not dare think about it. What would Mo Chuan do when he found out? Her mind was filled with Mo Chuan. Her heart was filled with a crazy desire to go back. Go back, go back. She came back to her senses and looked over. She found that her clothes had been taken off by Chu Xiaobai, and he had his eyes closed, helping her take off her clothes. She came back to her senses and turned to look. She found that her clothes had been taken off by Chu Xiaobai, and he was currently helping her take off her clothes with his eyes closed. Her heart was filled with fear. Chu Xiaobai. Chapter 550. He was actually taking advantage of her. Chen Ning was so angry that she almost bled from biting her teeth. If she could move, she would have bitten off a piece of his flesh without any hesitation. It was because he believed that she would not harm him that she was confident enough to travel with him. She never thought that the more gentle and harmless a person looked, the more ruthless he was. He was simply even more hateful than Chu Xiaoyang. Chu Xiaobai tightly closed his eyes, not seeing her angry eyes. He carefully helped her take off her wet clothes, afraid that he would accidentally touch her skin. He was holding his breath and had a serious expression on his face. He did not think of anything in his mind, and all his thoughts were thrown to the back of his mind. He was really just helping her change clothes. He was afraid that she would catch a cold, so his movements were light and quick. After taking off the wet clothes, he quickly helped her put on a new set of clothes and then pulled the blanket over her. He let out a sigh of relief and opened his eyes, revealing a smile to her. All right, you can sleep a bit more comfortably like this. His eyes were as clear as water, without any impurities in them. Chen Ning couldn't help being stunned. We're just like this. He wasn't the kind of person she thought he was. He didn't have any dirty thoughts at all. Why are your eyes so wide open? Don't you want to sleep? Then I'll talk to you for a bit, all right? He pulled over a wooden stool and sat down beside her. He held his chin as he looked at her without blinking. Actually, he was very tired, but he could stay by her side. As long as he looked at her like this, he couldn't bear to close his eyes, especially when he thought that from now on, she would always be by his side, inseparable from him. His heart swelled with joy, and every pore of his body was smiling. Xiaobai. She struggled to say these two words. She saw that his eyes were completely red and that he had smeared something on his face. His face was waxy yellow, and she couldn't see his expression, but she knew that he must be very sleepy and tired. She originally hated and was angry with him, but seeing him like this, the resentment in her heart unconsciously dissipated. She knew that he had racked his brains to come up with such a plan for her. For her, he had abandoned his status as King Jing'an, abandoned his family, abandoned his homeland, and prepared to take her to the ends of the world. For her, he had sacrificed everything he had. Did she hate him? She found that she could not hate him. But Mo Chuan. Thinking of Mo Chuan, her heart filled with pain. It was like a sharp knife was stabbing into her heart, making it hard for her to breathe. What do you want to say? Chu Xiaobai immediately looked down and gently looked at her. She moved her lips. Send me back. Her voice was as soft as a whisper. However, he heard it, understood it, because his expression immediately changed, becoming firm and decisive. He held her face with his hands and forcefully shook his head. No, Ninger, I definitely won't send you back because Imperial Grandmother will take your life. I don't need for anything, I just want you to live. After he finished speaking, he slowly laid down beside her, his head resting on her arm, not moving an inch. After a while, he began to snore evenly. Shen Ning knew that he must have fallen asleep. Ning, he fell. He actually fell asleep next to her. How could he sleep comfortably in such a position? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.